Pete is out tonight. Gretch is out tonight, but we are still doing ship chasing, except it's an ADP chasing, ship chasing takeover. Let's do it.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita hand job.
Fix your site.
Jamar. Alpha play chase. Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally this boys. You're right.
That broke my brain. ADP chasing, ship chasing takeover. Welcome, guys. Sam, that's it. I'm done hosting. I'm gonna throw it over to you, our ADP chasing host, and let's do it.
It's a beautiful intro. We're chasing so many things. It's kind of hard to keep track at this point. I'm stat chasing, ADP chasing Crane. I don't even know what's going on, but we're here tonight. We're taking over for Pete. The main requirements of being a host on Ship Chasing are being a white guy with a blonde, slightly receding hairline, and I'm taking over for Pete.
Your lips might be too full, though, Sam.
Yeah, the mustache. I don't know how that fits into the criteria. I'll have to check with Pete on that, but yeah, doing my best Pete impression. I'll try my best. No one's as good as Pete, but we'll have some fun here tonight. I guess a quick intro to people who maybe are regular ship chasing guys but aren't aware of ADP chasing. The three of us have been doing a weekly show, mostly on Fridays throughout the off season. And we basically discuss ADP values, track the market movement. So that's the overall sort of outline of the show tonight. But yeah, before we get into that, Pat, Davis, how are your Wednesday nights going? Davis, you're able to get clearance from the wife for tonight, or what was that process like?
I just don't want to stay up this late, bro. Like we're gonna
Is that
be
what
up.
it is?
We're gonna be up. Dude, I go to the gym at 5 a.m. Like you're throwing my whole week off here, dude.
Well, thank you for coming.
Had to do it. I think a good tagline for ADP chasing is ship chasing if the hosts were all virgins, right? Because it's all ADP. It's all database. We got graphs and we got charts. It's ADP chasing is the ship chasing variant for people who combed through their teams yesterday, trying to figure out which teams they already had Bengals Chiefs correlated on.
Yeah. ADP chasing is for when you watch ship chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
Oh man. That's hilarious.
How many puppies have we all done? Are we already, Crane, it's May 10th. Are you already sick of drafting?
I'm not sick of drafting. Davis, I was not able to draft very much over like the last 10 days because the NFL draft, getting the rankings up on the site, getting the rankings kind of like dialed in, launched this underdog promo, dealing, with all the kind of logistical admin stuff there, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, I don't have any time to get the writing done that I want to get done. I had this article come out this morning on Elite Tight End. That took me like a fair amount of time to write. Also because I didn't plan to write it. I was trying to write a quarterback article and it morphed into something else. So that's how I do things. So finally got an article out on the site. First one in a little while. And I drafted all afternoon. I went out in the beautiful sun. I was doing 3 puppies at once. I came back in, just dripping a puppy as I did some house stuff. I finished up a puppy seconds before the show went live. I must have done a dozen puppies today. It was a delight.
It's already the season. I'm already mad about people taking the quarterback when I need them. It happened to me. I was in Chicago this weekend and we were leaving. I'm sitting there getting ready to. We actually took the train and I'm sitting there getting ready to go, just knocking a puppy out, and I start Chase, Pollard, T, and then pick. Right after I took T, someone took Burrow, and I'm just like, "What are we doing here, man? What are we doing here?"
Yeah, are you taking?
May 5th, and I'm already losing my mind.
What's the plan for that drafter? Like Irv Smith and Andre
Yes,
Yossi Bosch.
You got to take. You have to take Mixon. and because he randomly binks the 5 touchdown game in week 17, and you got to take Boyd and you got to take Irv Smith Jr.
Oof.
So Pete's shared a story today. I haven't seen this stream, but this was streamed, so the chat may already have seen this. But he was saying that on stream, someone sniped him on Tyler Conklin.
Oh,
20
it was Paul. Yeah,
20 picks ahead of
Paul,
ADP.
yeah.
He had Rodgers, I assume, and the guy who sniped him took him because he had Justin Herbert, and they play the NFC East. So he knew, or the AFC East, I guess. So he knew that there's not even there's a chance to play in week 3. For the small chance there might be a week 17 correlation.
Yeah, it was Paul. You guys got to watch the stream because Pete has an all-time meltdown and lashes out at Paul, who's a great member of the Discord. Like, I think he's shipped a bunch of best ball stuff. Really smart guy, but it was the biggest your brain is broken from thinking about week 17 way too much moment. And the funny thing that didn't get mentioned on stream and I was watching is his choice was Michael Mayer. He was the highest tight end by ADP, and the Raiders and the Chargers are in the same division, right? I'm not wrong about that. Like,
certainly a decent chance because we know the Chiefs are playing the Bengals.
Twice
so
the chance, you would say.
Yeah,
certainly
double the chance with Michael Mayer versus fucking Tyler Conklin, and Paul justified it with that schedule thing. So we love you, Paul, but your brain is probably a little bit broken.
I mean, I think all of our brains are irrevocably broken at this point. Honestly, like it's just there's no going back.
Well, should we talk about the Chiefs and the Bengals real quick because we want to talk about ADP shifts? I mean, that was like my first inkling that like what we've
how
been
far
doing...
ahead of ADP did Kadarius Toney go today? Like 10, 15 picks?
Oh God, you know what? I didn't even see his name. He must have been going so early.
He was same thing happened to me. I had 2 times I had him starred, ready to pick him, and he was gone.
Wow. But it is kind of wild because like just that one game being released has like already shaken up ADP. So when we get the others 16 or whatever, 15.
My biggest reaction from it was like I've been playing the QBs as if Mahomes has got to fall. Man, he's not falling past the Chase drafter at the 2-3 turn. Like I don't. If people are thinking about week 17 as much as I'm thinking they are, I don't think Mahomes ADP can really fall much now with Chase there sort of as the stopgap for teams doing that correlation. So, maybe he still can fall into the mid-third like I originally thought, but I think really like it's going to be interesting once all these schedules come out to really see how like that type of impact can sort of stop a player's ADP slide or rise them up. So,
well, keep in mind that by the time people who are not really drafting on Twitter memes, week 17 memes come into the pool, the ADP is going to be so baked,
Yeah.
Like by the time August gets here, these are going to be set in stone. That is a powerful force of inertia to try and move.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, although wouldn't it kick out some of the old stuff? Like, isn't it rolling?
No, I'm not saying the ADP in and of itself is.
You're just saying people are going to be so anchored to it.
People are, but like we're just going to be like, oh, I take this guy at this pick every single time. I know, like
right.
By the time I'm 5 picks into a draft, I can basically fill the rest of it out. I can color by numbers by that.
That's so true. I also have started to wonder if the quarterbacks won't stick kind of where they're at, or roughly. Maybe they'll fall to the 2-3 turn, but stay there. Yeah.
We might as well get into it now. Yeah. Let's pull it up. So we did this exercise. We already started talking about it. So let's pull it up. Before I show the chart, I want to like anchor people on what we tried to do here. These are not like we did not try to rank players 1 through 36. Pat Davis and I tried to give our best estimate of where we think the best ball market is going to be on rounds 1 through 3 in September when Best Ball Mania closes. So again, not our rankings. This is like probably obviously biased by what we think and what our rankings are, but more so, this is what we think is going to happen once all the casual drafters enter the pool, once we get all the, August camp storylines, once all that stuff happens, here's sort of the median ADP. So I got Pat and Davis's ranks, and I averaged it with mine, and we got this draft board here.
I'd like to raise T. Higgins, who just went 17, because someone had to pair him with Kelsey.
I would also like to do that.
Yeah, all right, that closing line on T. Higgins is just wrong. we already blew it.
This was before, the schedule got announced, but I don't know, like
it's a one-day thing. It's a one-day thing. I just want to start this discussion here. You guys don't get fantasy football at all if you think Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to go in the second round. Like, there's a real chance. Like, it's just the way fantasy football goes, dude.
I don't know. Breece Hall was going in like the 4th and 5th round last year.
He played for the Jets. Everyone thought they were a joke. Everyone thought they were going to stink. Everyone likes the Lions. Everyone
likes the Lions, but no one thinks Gibbs is like their early down running back.
I don't really think.
Let's get into Gibbs. I want to like set the scene a little bit before we get into Gibbs. I think like let's talk about this board from a macro level. Our sort of consensus agreement, like we have a lot of individual disagreements, but our consensus agreement largely was there's a handful of running backs going at the 2-3 turn that are underpriced, or maybe the 3rd round. And that's Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, Tony Pollard, Ramondre. We all, like on average, had those guys jumping up 5, 6, 7 spots. And that's sort of what I've been arguing this whole time. My personal rankings, I also think those guys are undervalued. But even if you are someone who doesn't think those guys are undervalued,
there's a difference between thinking they're undervalued and that they're going to rise in price, though.
Exactly,
those aren't the same things.
Exactly. I'm trying to separate that out.
Both. I think both are true.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both, but I think there is kind of this. I'm already pushing back on one of the conclusions, so keep going.
Okay, I'm just saying, Pat, the point I'm trying to make is even if you are someone who says, like, I'm guessing this is kind of where you're coming from. You're saying, I think they'll rise in price. I don't really think they're necessarily massively undervalued. I still think that means if you're sort of taking a portfolio based approach to drafting, you should be getting your wide receiver, running back starts in now, because you're not going to be able to get the Justin Jefferson, Nick Chubb, Tony Pollard start in August. You're not going to be able to get the Jamar Chase, Josh Jacobs, Ramondre start in August. So if you're trying to take a diversified portfolio and you just want a little bit of those types of teams, like I don't see any argument for not going pretty heavy on that now, assuming you're drafting 25 teams or so in May, June. So that's my argument.
So for this exercise, I don't know if you guys have had this, but just running back gets so full of guys I absolutely do not want to click on. And I'm going to assume that other people are going to feel the same way, which is over time going to lead to the running backs that people do feel comfortable clicking on rising up the board.
What part of the draft are you talking about?
So I'm talking about the Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, just like you just do not want to be like, it's just not fun.
So I took Mixon today. This is kind of outside the scope, but I took Mixon today, and I have to say, Mixon is actually kind of nice to have drafted, because then you go, I either have like a guy who's like a 3rd round, like he's probably, if he's the guy there, he's probably about the same value as ETN.
Or on a different team.
But let's say he's not. Let's say he's on the Bengals and he's the guy, like he's not a perfect pick. He's probably 3rd or 4th round value. Like I think the fact that they like don't like him and we're playing Samaje Perine ahead of him at times was, is a concern. But I don't think he's like dust, and he's on the Bengals.
His ADP is not representative of what his expected production is.
It's binary.
It's just based on the cloud hanging over him.
So then you go, okay, well, if I have him, and in this case, I forget which early running back I had him with, might have been Breece Hall, might have been, Ramondre, something like that. So I'm like, I've got like 2 legit, like I went running back almost. So then I built the rest of the team like running back. So I'll give Mixon a little love there, because it's like either the team's dead, or you can build a pretty unique structure that gives him like basically 3rd round draft capital.
I like that. That makes sense. Cool. Well, let's get into some of our disagree. I guess like the other macro thing I'll point out here is our consensus is we don't have that 2nd round group of quarterbacks really sliding. I think maybe a couple spots from where they are now. Yeah, Josh Allen is the one that. So this is my take on the quarterbacks, and this is super micro. Josh Allen has the highest potential to slide because he doesn't have the stacking partner stopping him from sliding. Jalen Hurts has both AJ Brown and Devonta on both sides of the draft board. It's going to be really fucking hard for Jalen Hurts to slide. Now Mahomes has Kelsey on one side and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on the other for the bring back stacks. He's not going to slide. I think if one guy does slide, it's if the Bills play the Patriots in week 17 and Josh Allen maybe slides closer to that third round Stephon Diggs
I can see that
group. That's like possible. And that's not because I think Hurts and Mahomes are better than Allen, just purely like a correlational, like lining these guys up take. So that's where the quarterbacks stand. But yeah, let's talk quarterbacks first. Like, Pat, do you think we got it right here with our average takes? Like, do you feel actually now that these guys aren't going to slide? I know like previously you said you think these guys might slide to the third round or something.
Yeah, I think one thing I try to keep in mind is like what I want to have happen versus what I'm predicting will happen. And I want these quarterbacks to slide. And I was like starting to get like really like take locked that they would slide. And I was just like, they're probably not going to slide. Like I want it too much. So my thing is I'm going to be putting something out on Legendary Upside about kind of an idea of how to go in and target these quarterbacks at the high end, you know, kind of trying to pair some structures with these elite quarterbacks that might make it a little bit more unique, a little bit more palatable to go get these guys at prices if they're if you're having sticker shock the same way I am. But yeah, I think we're going to have to probably proceed like they're not going to slide a ton. I guess I could see Mahomes going at the 2-3 turn.
Mm-hmm.
And
that inertia is so hard though, because
I know
that's so many drafts where the
Kelsey
drafter
because the Kelsey drafter's not passing. Yeah. So it's almost like how far does Allen slide? Because if Allen slides down into the third, then like the Hurts draft, the AJ Brown drafter is not going to want to take Hurts in the mid-second, knowing that Allen's going in the third. So then he starts to pass, and then maybe, you know, so everyone starts to come down a little bit. But I'm almost seeing the opposite, where Lamar Jackson's coming up closer to the 2-3 turn. So it's almost like someone's coming up to meet these guys as opposed to they're going down to meet him.
Because people are going to want to take, if people might start taking Lamar over Josh Allen so they can double tap Lamar and Andrews.
I did that today in a puppy because I was like, this isn't going to change in the next whatever. Yeah. So I might as well. I took Andrews first because I was like, I'd rather just grab Andrews. But then Lamar, I got him, and I think it was like CMC. That's actually pretty fun. I had to pound wide receivers for the next few rounds, but
I could also see Fields falling too, just because I think we're all sort of in agreement that the quarterback ADP just doesn't jive, right? For whatever reason, it just feels kind of wrong. And Fields doesn't have the natural stacking partner there.
Yeah. And I could see more sliding to the start of the fifth. I think there's a lot of FUD from
will fall. When
there's a lot of FUD from ETR and those type of guys and more. So if he falls to the fifth, then I could see Fields falling to the late fourth. I could see that. It's hard. It's just so much harder we talk about Allen falling, but again, like I'd say the absolute floor that these guys fall is the mid third, right? Like I think it's impossible they fall farther than.
I agree.
Like I could see.
I agree.
Allen goes at 3.8 to pair with Diggs. I think that's his floor. Mahomes goes at 3.7 to pair with Kelsey. That's his floor. Yeah. Hurts goes at 3.10 to pair with Brown. Floor. Like no chance the AJ Brown drafters. So
no one's at the 3-4 turn going, I'll push and see if I get Hurts on the comeback. Like no, you just grab Hurts, pair him up. Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like if we're talking about like a maximum full round like fall, like sure, I'm with you, Pat. I'm rooting for these guys to fall. Like I would love to be able to take Pollard, Ramondre, Brees over these guys and still get them in the mid third. Probably not going to happen. Even if it does, it's not going to be some kind of like massive fall. So like I'm starting to like think about like it sounds like you're doing with writing an article. Like I'm starting to think about, okay, I can't tell myself this story of they're going to fall later in the summer and I'll get them then. Like I've kind of been lying to myself with that. So I got to start thinking about how I'm actually going to approach these guys, which I honestly don't have fully figured out yet, but certainly something I'm thinking about.
I think they might fit better with 0 running back starts than I mean, they certainly would
Probably.
fit with any start, but like what I was thinking is the same way like I thought running back starts fit nicely with three quarterback builds last year. The reason I thought that is because I was noticing that if you're going to go three quarterback, you don't want to like push it too far. You still want to get guys who've got a little bit of upside. That can help you in the playoffs and everything. So if you're going running back, then you don't need to worry about running back in that kind of classic zero running back range as much. Maybe you grab one guy, but you don't need to grab, you can grab one and be done. So those strategies kind of paired nicely. And I think the same thing's happening here in the reverse, where if you grab an elite quarterback, then you can punt quarterback too. Like you can, like if you have like Hurts, you could like do a Nico Collins, Schultz, Stroud thing. You can do a Mingo, Bryce Young. Like you just need a guy who's going to like fill in for a couple weeks here and there.
Yeah.
Cover your bye week. You've already made the bet that Hurts is the guy who's going to win you the money in the playoffs. And so punting that pick out of that like kind of juicier running back range, I actually think it sets you up really nicely for zero running back. So it's like one of the things I'm going to be writing up.
That makes sense. Let's get back to like some of our disagreements here, and I'll quickly read off like for the audio listeners. I promised Pete I'd service you guys. The biggest closing line values we're seeing in terms of our predicted ADP versus now is Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, Tony Pollard, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ramondre, Mark Andrews, Saquon, and Bijan. So all running backs and Mark Andrews. Our biggest closing line losses that we're predicting: Metcalf, Olave, Derrick Henry, Josh Allen, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Hurts, T. Higgins. So just wanted to give that quickly to audio listeners. Let's get into our disagreements. We started with Gibbs. Davis, didn't want to cut you off there. What's your case for, you have Gibbs as the highest of the three of us at 27.
This is just classic fantasy football. This is just, I've seen this story a million times. The rookie, he's going to look sick in training camp. The coaches are going to love him. It's just, and people love rookies. People love pass catching running backs, like all this stuff. Everyone's going to bring up the high value touches that DeAndre Swift got, and they're going to be like, what if the coaches like Jahmyr Gibbs and he's in a 60-40 instead of a 40-60? And it just, I closed my eyes and seen it all play out so perfectly. And Montgomery's ADP will fall a little bit. Gibbs's will rise a little bit. I also think Goff's ADP will correspondingly go up. I just think there's just going to be Lions pub. Like if they're just going to be one of those teams this offseason that gets the pub.
I can see that. Yeah.
It just feels like we already have like RotoViz articles about like Jahmyr Gibbs is the highest upside player in every fantasy draft. Like it is what it is.
Pat, you want to give the devil's advocate. It sounds like Davis making good points and maybe swayed you a little bit, but you want to give the FUD on Gibbs a little?
Not all of the industry's on board. And I think they have legitimate pushback, and I'm like a big Gibbs guy for Dynasty, but I've been saying the whole time, like, hey, if I take Gibbs, I'm almost treating it like he's my like 6th round pick. Like I like flip picks, and I'm trying to go get like a Brian Robinson or someone who's like super boring that's just going to help get me points at running back, because I've taken like a flyer pick in the 3rd round because I don't think Gibbs is going to add much early in the season. He's 199 pounds. He's going to be playing like the Swift role. We know they are going to be running a committee. Like they're not going to, nor should they really hand this guy the job as a rookie, an undersized guy, kind of more of a passing down guy. I think down the line, he could be a fantasy superstar and potentially by the end of this season. But I do think that people are going to be pointing out all along the way in terms of his rise, like, hey, we're not projecting him to play more than 50% of the snaps. And he's 199 pounds.
Yeah,
and he's not actually that good of a between the tackle. Yeah, he's not going to get goal line touches. Montgomery's there who does everything. Montgomery has size. He's shown he can play in all facets of the game. They paid him a lot of money. That counter narrative is going to exist.
Yeah, they paid him a lot of money, and then they took Gibbs 12th overall. Like,
I mean, look, I'm not drafting a lot of Dave Montgomery. I'm just saying, I think
It's going to be one of the most phenomenal things when whoever the Lions play week 1, when David Montgomery gets 21 carries for 83 yards and a 1-yard touchdown, and Jahmyr Gibbs has 3 carries for 18 yards and 1 catch for 15 yards. Like, people are going to lose their minds.
Here's what I'll say. Listen, David Montgomery people out there, Rotopat, famously a David Montgomery guy, I appreciate the pushback that you're going to do in draft season. But don't victory lap Montgomery after week 1. You're gonna give it a little more time. Yes,
it'll take a while. I think actually the best King Coakley, Rob in the chat. This is probably the best answer here. I don't think DraftKings is gonna make you pay a higher price for Gibbs.
He'll be cheaper.
Probably be cheaper because all the sickos are on underdog, even though it's half PPR. If Gibbs hits in a big way, the leverage he's going to provide you is going to be much bigger in a full PPR site than half PPR site. So I think honestly, like, it sounds like a cop out, but I think this is like close to the optimal way to play it. Like, go to drafters, go to DK, get that 3rd round, 4th round Gibbs, probably fade him a little bit in underdog. I think that's going to be my approach.
If he gets to where Davis is going, I think I will. Right now, I'm still taking him.
I'm not even
3-4.
I'm not even saying
I had him
he
at
should
36.
be ranked.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying he should be ranked there. I just know fantasy football drafters, and they can't help themselves.
Yeah,
I do think he will get, like, you're already seeing a little bit, Davis. You're right that at some point this summer he's going to surge to like 28, and people are going to be like, "What the fuck's going on?" And then I think he'll probably fall back down. But that's going to happen.
We memed Sky Moore to the 8th round, and we're saying Jahmyr Gibbs can't be a late 2nd round pick. Like, I don't believe it.
If the Lions weren't so nuts and he went to the Chiefs, then I would believe it. But the Lions ruined it.
He'd be a 1st round pick, right? If they had
I don't think he'd be a 1st round pick, would he?
Jonathan Taylor on the Colts, or Jahmyr Gibbs on the Chiefs?
Gibbs. That's it, Gibbs.
Yeah.
It's actually not that hard.
Gibbs, because they didn't sign McKinnon in this case.
Yeah, fuck.
Oh, you're right. God damn.
Let's talk. Let's move on to Derrick Henry. Davis didn't even rank Derrick Henry in the top 3 rounds, which I thought was some kind of bit.
It's not a bit. I actually thought about this long and hard.
Okay, let's hear it, because I have him at 26. Pat has him at 30. I think his ADP is like 28. So Pat and I would have had him like not really moving at all. Davis, you're saying he slides a bunch. Let's hear this.
So case. I think there are a couple different things, obviously. I think the first one is we're all sort of anticipating a Tannehill trade at some point.
Yeah.
Or to some degree. That's going to immediately basically make the Titans the worst offense in the AFC. Like, whoever's doing projections, they're going to have a very hard time with the Traylon Burks, Chigakonkwo, Will Levis offense getting them to any sort of reasonable degree of offensive success. Also think there's a non-zero chance he gets traded, right? I mean, there's just no point to what they're doing, and I can't really find a landing spot where he would go and he would get this same sort of inhuman workload he's gotten there. And then the other thing is, and I don't know who this is going to be, but there's going to be a couple running backs who really end up rising. I think the best candidate is probably Breece Hall, where we get an early report, no brace, feeling good, feeling great. He goes up. Now, that's not reflected in my ranks because I think the more likely thing is the other way. I think we get bad injury news on Breece Hall before we get good.
Sure, that's fair.
But I'm just saying, or Kenneth Walker, right? Kenneth Walker. Maybe Charbonnet comes into camp and Pete Carroll's like, we're starting to get who was the running back for the Titans who they took really early and then literally never played him?
Darrington Evans?
No. This is a long time ago. I loved this guy. This is like,
White?
No, this is like 2015 Titans. This is Pete.
Bishop Sankey.
Yes. Right. So Charbonnet comes in and they're like, this guy can't play. Right. Then Kenneth Walker goes back up to running back 10. I think Ramondre, right? If we get to August 1st and the Patriots haven't signed anyone else and it's Ramondre Stevenson, Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris, and James Robinson, I think we see him rise. What if Joe Mixon, no cut, no suspension, no arrest, right? I just think there are a lot of different like running backs who have question marks who could go up. I don't know who it's going to be. And I don't see any way the market views Henry more favorably, right? I don't see any scenario where the market looks at his price right now and goes, that's too low.
I think I kind of get what you're saying, but
I like that.
Let me just give like the donkey brained like box score checker take on Derrick Henry.
Henry Gobert.
Last 2 seasons, half PPR points per game, 23 and 20. Like he literally has a ceiling that other running backs like can't touch in half PPR. Besides like McCaffrey, besides
29 years old though. He's 29 years old, and his situation is crumbling.
I'm not saying that like I hear that, Pat, but like, are people taking Debo's 140 points last year over Derrick Henry's like 300? Like,
Depends
I
how many piss boys we can recruit.
Yeah, I just don't see I don't see him falling that far. I do think that, you know, my ranking at 26 is maybe a little ambitious. I was pricing in just like, you know, nothing changes for the Titans. Same situation basically as the last 2 years. He's not really showing signs of slowing down.
He was at 18 points per game last year. Half PPR. 20, 22, and then 18. And he's 29 years old.
20, 22, and 18. Wait, what did I say?
I thought you said he had 20 last year.
Oh, okay.
Anyways,
yeah, something in that range.
Tarek Bryant Jr. made a great point in the chat. If they play Houston in Week 17, invalidated, he'll be right back up. No, like everyone's looking at that.
If he plays Houston in Week 17, I'll be drafting him in the second round.
Right? Yeah. No, I'll take him.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm still seeing
the issue.
Anyways, not to get hung up on the 20 points per game.
I'm surprised you didn't put Brock. Right. I'm surprised you didn't put Brock Purdy at 36, Sam.
I thought about it. Oh no, Pat, you're right. You're right, Pat. I was wrong on that. I think I was looking at PPR points per game. Anyways, yeah, I still think the
PPR point though is I think one thing that's a little bit tough with him too is that they just drafted Tajay Spears, who like literally doesn't have an ACL, but they're playing. He's playing through it. Like he was like a full participant in everything.
Hey, Jay Jai didn't have an ACL.
He didn't have cartilage. I thought he had his ACLs. But like Spears is a passing down back and a pretty talented receiver. So the whole like this offense is totally fizzling out. Like the plan is no longer working anymore thing. I mean, one thing that saved Henry last year was that they actually threw to him a little bit. He had 41 targets last year. That was a career high. 33 receptions was a career high
by like a billion.
By like a billion.
Yeah.
It was almost twice what he had the previous season.
But I just like Levis. If Levis is the guy if the Levis is the guy they're starting, like this offense is just going to be so bad. Like it's going to be really, really bad.
Yeah.
I think you guys are all making valid points. Again, my rankings, I'd probably have him at 30 or something close to that. I still see a lot of potential.
Sam, you and I were close, right? Oh, you had 26, I had 30, yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's my prediction. Like my ranking probably would be like 30, 29, something like that. I don't know, man. People are gonna love Derrick Henry. I think like him sliding past.
I'm probably wrong. I'm probably wrong. Just the Derrick Henry people, they are who they are, and they have no interest in changing.
David Kitchen's like 3 drafts per year are gonna prop him up a lot too when he takes him 101. So you got to factor that in.
He's such a meme. Like players that are memes are harder to see big vacillations on because people just generate such a strong feeling about drafting them. And I should have taken that into more consideration in this exercise.
It is tough though, because it's like, okay, am I going to take Henry or Jahmyr Gibbs? If I'm a Henry drafter, that's a no-brainer. I'm taking Henry. Henry and Travis Etienne, same thing. But Ramondre, Josh Jacobs.
I could see Henry drafters. I could see Henry drafters being more into those guys. Yeah.
Like those are real running backs. Like those are workhorse running backs. That's like an appealing archetype, really for everybody. But I think for a Henry type drafter as well. So, or like Nick Chubb. If are you gonna? I mean, and the guy is probably taking Nick Chubb and then grabbing Derrick Henry in the third. Like this is a start. You're gonna see Travis Kelce, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry. Like that's gonna be a start. They're gonna be like, I already won.
That's a high. I already won right there.
The biggest thing that I actually thought I had different than you guys in terms of what it would do to draft structure was I had Eckler all the way down at 17, where Pollard's going.
Yeah, that one was interesting. That just missed the cut. Mm-hmm.
So, reason being, the Chargers are simply signing another running back, right?
Yeah.
They just, and it's, God help me. I think it's probably going to be Zeke at this point. But, it could be anybody, dude. It could be Fournette. It could be Kareem Hunt. It could be anybody. but it's going to be telegraphing that they're not building the entire plane out of a 4.8 ADOT. Like they're just going to say Austin Eckler is not catching 100 passes in the middle of a contract dispute. It's not happening.
So, yeah, I think they probably are signing someone. You're kind of I know you're ex-Cowboys at this point, but like you would know better than anybody. What's Kellen Moore and Zeke's relationship like? Is that going to help?
I mean, it sounds like it was never acrimonious between those two guys.
Okay.
But you do have to think Kellen Moore was probably the one guy in the coaching room being like, we got to play Pollard more, because even the running back coach who works with these guys every day and is acutely aware of what they can and can't do was like, Pollard can't play more than 30 snaps in a game or he'll break, and clearly Jerry, like old yellering Zeke was the hardest thing he ever had to do.
He'll never recover.
He'll never get over it.
Yeah, he's gonna wish he had more time with Zeke. That's what he's gonna wish.
What would I guess my question to you guys would be is what is the best case resolution to this Austin Eckler contract thing? Because he himself, in his own words, he said playing for the Chargers this season is the worst case outcome. It's the worst thing that could happen to him as a football player.
I think status quo is his best bet at this point, to be honest. I don't see, like, I guess you could dream and make up some scenario where the Vikings cut Dalvin Cook and trade for Austin Eckler. Like, sure, there's some like fantasies I can tell you that aren't maybe entirely implausible, but the most realistic best outcome for him, I think, are just status quo. Fournette signs with the Bengals, like Kareem Hunt signs with the Vikings or whatever, and it's just Eckler and Barry Roundtree and whoever else is in there, and
we have the chat saying the Chargers really like Joshua Kelly, to which I would respond, no one really likes Joshua Kelly. Joshua Kelly's own parents
that's why they drafted 2 running backs after Joshua Kelly. And desperately tried to replace him. I love him so much.
It's funny.
Every day they think about how much they love this guy.
He was the biggest of those dust ball running backs they tried to draft. He was the best of like 4. Like there was 3 guys worse than him.
I forgot Isaiah Spiller existed until this moment. Now.
What was the other guy? Daba something?
Larry Roundtree.
Larry Roundtree. That's who
Larry.
I meant.
Sony Michel was involved, both with Pat's Best Ball Mania winning team and the Los Angeles Chargers last season.
That's true.
Also,
he did nothing for both teams.
I gotta delete some Sony Michel touting him as a free agent pickup in the FFPC main event. I gotta delete some of those tweets from last year.
A point I also just thought.
I didn't know about that.
Having a competent wide receiver fill in for Keenan Allen's yearly 4-week absence from the lineup, that's going to make a difference too. I think having Quentin Johnston instead of Jalen Guyton, that feels.
I think Eckler's receiving projection and potentially his rushing projection takes a bit of a hit this year. Again, like where I'd have Eckler ranked, I think I'm kind of like with you, Davis, like maybe 15, 16. I'm just not sure people are going to bake all those factors.
They will if Eckler,
if they sign a running back. Yeah, if they sign a running back,
they will.
Look, if the Establish the Run rankings come out when they post them, and Austin Eckler is 17, that's like it's. I mean,
what if he's 23 because they signed Fournette?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I mean, people are just straight up like a larger portion of the pool than you realize are just straight up importing Establish the Run, Underdog, Best Ball Mania rankings and using that as their guide.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, let's talk maybe one more player here. We touched on Breece Hall a little bit. Maybe this one is as simple as Davis had him at 28. Me and Pat had him at 19. I am at 21. I think this is as simple as Davis, you're assuming the median scenario is slightly bad news for the ACL tear. Pat and I are assuming slightly good news for the ACL tear. End of story. Is that just kind of what we're thinking here?
I just bet against injury, guys. That's it's probably my number one thing in fantasy football, honestly.
I mean, it's fair. I just think Breece, okay, again, not to get away from the exercise too much. I get the argument that he would fall with bad injury news. I think your ranking of 28, Davis, is entirely plausible. This is a very binary one, right? We're going to get some news. It's going to be good. It's going to be bad. He's going to go one direction or the other. Man, I just think that like he's the guy you make the exception on for the injury risk, and this will probably burn you more times than it'll help you. But just with what he showed last year, I want to believe he has the Jamal Charles, post ACL tear being the RB1 in fantasy. I want to believe he has the Adrian Peterson season in him post ACL tear, just because he's a young freak athlete, all that. But I definitely see the argument.
I get it. I'm not even saying I won't take Breece Hall. The big issue right now is you can just take Pollard and Ramondre every time there, and I have no concerns about those guys at all. And
that's what I've been doing.
I mean, maybe Breece. The thing is, though, is you could really be missing the boat because I would take Breece ahead of Jacobs and Chubb, assuming 100% health. Like
I'd take him ahead of Taylor.
Yeah, well, Jonathan Taylor. So I also rank Taylor ahead of you guys because, I mean, a couple of reasons. The first one being, I just think very similar to Henry. He's just kind of mimetic. Like he is that guy. But also, if we get good stuff about Anthony Richardson and good stuff about the Colts, like it feels like the market. We were talking about this in our ADP Chasing thread, and I kind of agreed with Sam's take that Anthony Richardson is not good for Jonathan Taylor, but it also might be good for them to just be like a better, more functional offense instead of having Sam Ellinger at quarterback. Like it got to be such a mess. For the
still
Colts
an improving
last year.
situation for Taylor.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean
that's my point.
Like if they traded up for Stroud, that's the best case scenario. Or they trade up for Bryce Young, But if compared to what they were, like it's a hell of a lot better than them going, we're not taking quarterback, we're good. So that I just think no matter how many dump off passes, you're giving up with Anthony Richardson, the offense could be quite a bit better.
Sure, but I guess my counter to that is like using last year as a baseline, saying it's going to get better. Yeah, I agree. It's like the offense will probably be better. Taylor was fucking like a terrible pick last year. Like he got 12.
Dude, the Colts were
points per game. Like
the Colts were worse than I remember. They were.
What I'm saying,
they were so bad.
What I'm saying is like it has to get a lot. It has to get a lot better for him, right? Like not just like a little bit better. Like, yeah. But these
are teams that scored more points and gained more yards per play than the Indianapolis Colts last season. The Los Angeles Rams, right? We're all laughing at the Los Angeles Rams. They were better. The Arizona Cardinals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Washington Commanders, the Denver Broncos, one of the largest shipwrecks in fantasy football history, were markedly better. Like I had forgotten like there's things you forget over the context. I just did not realize they were this bad.
Yeah, they hired a coach off the ESPN set. Not exactly the best process.
Jeff Saturday.
They literally did. They're like that. They fucking was watching TV. He was like, "That's my coach. Let's get him in there tomorrow." Wow. Okay.
Oh man.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. What a disaster. Okay, so I want to do a bit because I guess I'm the Taylor bear here a little bit, and I made that case in our Discord. I guess I'll outline it here a little bit for people. It's essentially that elite rushing quarterbacks are really terrible for the ceiling of fantasy running backs. Not to say that you can't have guys that you take in the 6th, 7th round attached to a elite rushing quarterback that are good picks. Like certainly I think that's true. But I think when we're talking about a guy going in the 1st round with a quarterback that projects to A, steal a bunch of goal line rushing, B, not really dump down to running backs in the passing game because he could scramble instead and also likes to throw deep. We know that about Richardson. And C, like we all like Richardson, I think, but you have to admit there's a chance that the Colts are just a bottom 5 offense next year and just terrible. Like there's a lot of things that have to go right for Taylor to pay off his 1st round cost. And again, like he's a meme. You can just say that like Taylor go Burr, and like I kind of get it to some extent, but I think like I would probably rather have Saquon, Eckler, Jacobs, Pollard, Chubb over Taylor.
I got to be honest.
In my rankings,
I'm taking Taylor over Eckler in 0.5 PPR, like pretty much sight unseen.
Yeah, me too. Plus, I mean, we have the signing risk, like,
Sure. Okay, then what's the like? Let's do this.
I mean, you're right. The argument is he's like really fucking good. That's the argument. The argument is he's really good, and
That's what the Jonathan Taylor argument is. It's just like he's sick.
he's sick, dude. He was an amazing prospect. He came in. He was insanely good 2 years ago. The offense is going to get back on its feet, at least to some extent. The best thing that he does is run the ball. That's what he does best. He's a fine receiver, but that's not like his bread and butter. His bread and butter is running the ball and explosive runs.
And aren't running
Anthony
quarterbacks
Richardson's going to open that up.
Aren't running quarterbacks good for yards per carry and success
rate? Yeah, they are.
Rate
They
and
boost
stuff
yards
like
per
that?
carry. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think pretending that rushing yards are more important than receptions and
I'm not
TDs.
pretending that. I'm not.
No. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying that like you can use that argument, but like I agree. You know, that's true. It's good for yards per carry. You could be wildly efficient, but like show me the TD upside. Show me the receiving upside. Like I think you need one of those things in a pretty big way, and it just feels like a lot. Like I can't tell myself a story where Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson pay off their ADPs with Richardson going in the 6th round. Like,
so I have in my spreadsheet here for the legendary upside stuff, green zone opportunities per game. So over the career of all these backs, adjusted it slightly for some who had like major changes in situation. But Taylor, I have for his career. 2 green zone opportunities per game. That's the highest of any of these running backs. Dalvin Cook was second, 1.9. Joe Mixon had 1.8. Josh Jacobs at 1.8. Compared to like Tony Pollard, 0.4. So, yes, I get that Anthony Richardson is going to be stealing some goal line work from him as a giant human. But I don't know. I mean, he's a rookie quarterback. Like, is he going to – and you have Jonathan Taylor. Like, I guess I'm a little bit less concerned about Anthony Richardson being the goal line runner than you are. I think he's definitely going to get some work there. But Taylor was getting fed at the goal line. There's no other running back who's even remotely live to steal any of that work. I mean, Evan Hall, they're not bringing in Evan Hall at the goal line, like, ever.
I kind of forgot that Hines isn't even on the team anymore. Like this, like he could have a Henry volume season. Like he could have 380 touches.
I guess that's my point, right? Like you have to admit you're making a Derrick Henry 2 years ago.
It's Derrick Henry, yeah.
It's Derrick.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're going to that,
he's 24 years old, and he's an incredible runner. I mean, you talk about Chubb. Like Chubb's 27 years old, and he had a really bad knee injury in college. All the data that I've been looking at is saying like you actually, if anything, we're like if you're talking about running back ceiling, we're extending things too long. That we should actually start to get nervous about the ceiling earlier than we are. And so when I look at a guy like Nick Chubb, obviously the offense is way better. Like the offensive environment, way more interesting. Chubb could potentially catch some passes this year as well. Like I kind of like Chubb actually for like the first time in 5 years, but he's 27 years old. There's a big difference between that and someone who's 24.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I really think like the Taylor ceiling case like can hit. It's not impossible. We've seen like this setup for Derrick Henry more or less hit, like just a really efficient rusher, not going to catch passes. But now you're making the Derrick Henry bet, but the team has Derrick Henry at quarterback who's going to score rushing touchdowns. And it's going to be a bad, like if the Colts are as good as those Ryan Tannehill led Titans offenses, like I'll bet with anybody on that. Like those Titans Tannehill offenses are going to be way better than this year's Colts offense. Like I'll bet even money with anybody on that. Like no questions asked. Like, man, Tannehill was really good some of those years, and he wasn't like stealing goal line work from Henry. So I don't know, man. I get what you guys are saying. Like I'm going to have a pretty hard fade on Taylor at this price, and I'm willing to accept that.
Do you think he falls, or do you think you just don't like the price?
I think he falls. So I'll show this now. Jonathan Taylor, since I'm a market mover out here. Since I made that tweet on 4 spots, second biggest fall, 13 overall. I'm seeing in Pete's streams, he's like, "Oh, are you guys really going to let me take Taylor at pick 17?" I honestly think like when the projections come out, people are going to remember Taylor last year with a sour taste in their mouths. Like, I think he's gonna slide, but that's just me. Like, right. I'm willing to, go with the
happily take in the mid-second.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I would like to take him. So maybe it's a little bit of wish casting for me. But I I had this exercise. I'm going to skip through it. I wanted you guys to try to find Taylor, Chubb, and Jacobs on this chart. I took the last 3 years of data and just looked at PPR points per game, or sorry, half PPR points per game, receptions per game, yards per game. Do you guys want to do this quickly, or should I just show you the answers? Because I think it's a little interesting. These are all samples of like 40 games too, so they're pretty big samples.
Well, I mean, just based on the ages.
Yeah, Henry.
The Henry one's the top one because he's the 20. He's 29.
Yeah, that one has to be Henry, right? So where do you think? You know, I don't.
Who are the others?
Answers. I'm gonna show it to you guys. So I was trying to make the point that essentially like Jacobs and Taylor, I think I get the arguments for Chubb, Taylor ahead of Chubb. The ones with Jacobs versus Taylor, for me, it's just like we like running backs to catch passes. Jacobs catches more passes than Taylor. He's definitely going to project to do that this year. You know, yards per game, Jacobs and Taylor last 3 years are basically the same. You know, points per game, Jacobs, Taylor the last 3 years, not that different. I get that Taylor's ceiling, which he showed 2 years ago, is better than Jacobs' ceiling, which he showed last year. Like, certainly you have that argument, and you know, you can make the speed argument with Taylor, breakaway runs, that sort of thing. But again, look at, you know, we're talking about rushing talent. PFF rush grades last 3 years, Jacobs 1st, 10th, 20th, Taylor 51st, 3rd, 10th. Like, I don't think they're that as different as people view them as talents. Like in sort of any metric you look at, they're not that different. We have this like idea in our head that Jacobs is this gross dead zone back. Taylor's this like elite talent. I mean, they're basically the same age. That's my point, basically. Like the situation for Jacobs this year looks so much better than Taylor for me. And I don't think they're that different of talent. So like, I think they should at least be close. But yeah, curious.
You're just not going to get, so Jacobs is like an okay rusher, but this is RotoViz's rush yards, fantasy points over expected per game rushing. And Josh Jacobs is at 1.1, which is like fine. That's what Austin Eckler has. That's what Christian McCaffrey has. So, but it's more kind of like the workhorse bet. Jonathan Taylor is at 2.3. Derrick Henry was at 2.4. Breece Hall is at 2.7, which is why I'm so excited about him if he was healthy. Nick Chubb, one of the reasons Nick Chubb was at 2.5. So those guys, I would say those right now are like your four potentially, and we'll see, you know, age, health, all the stuff. But like those four, I think, are in a bit of a different tier because they provide a lot more explosion. I mean, Jacobs doesn't really provide you any explosion as a rusher. He's a chunk play runner, and he's good. He's good at that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know, 53 catches last year, 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Like, I get that was sort of his ceiling. But
well, yeah. Are you worried about that? So that's been one thing that's tough with me with Jacobs, a little bit like, and I do take him because the price is pretty good. Like the price on all these guys does feel pretty good right now. I'm taking them a lot more than I would, had expected to. But even last year, he had 17.9 half-point PPR points per game. It was good, but like it was especially good because of where you got him.
Yeah.
So if we're saying like, oh, we should be taking him where Taylor goes, like I don't know. Last year really felt like kind of the ceiling to me, and then you're moving to Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. I'm not really a Jimmy believer. I think the offense could be, not that it was great last year, but I don't know. It might have been kind of a perfect storm for a running back. Yeah, that we kind of had given up on as a talent, and then he comes surging back to life. But he did it with good efficiency for sure, but mostly by just consolidating the entire backfield. And he's a pretty strong favorite to do that again.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, first in PFF rush grade, like I get that, like that's not everything, but like I'm going to push back a little bit on Jacobs not being a good talent at running back. Like I think,
no, I'm not saying he's not. I'm saying Taylor is potentially elite talent at running back, and I think guys like Chubb, Taylor. I mean, Taylor had rush yards over expected 2 years ago. He was off the fucking charts. I mean, the guy was, let's see. Well, he wasn't because Rashad Penny actually was 2.1, but he finished third at 1.48 ahead of Nick Chubb. Tony Pollard was fifth. So, I mean, what he showed as a rusher and on a big workload, he had 481 yards over expected 2 years ago. Chubb had 269. He was like handling massive volume and providing elite efficiency on top of it. So it's more for me the Taylor side of this that I'm arguing. I think Jacobs is like a good runner.
Sure.
Taylor flashed elite ability. Jacobs never has.
Yeah. So I see some pushback in the chat. Like, my argument is not that these are bad stats for Taylor. Like, these are really good stats. And again, he had one pretty bad year in here, so Taylor's ceiling is certainly really good. I just think, like, your first round pick, the downside of the team situation, again, could be a horrible team, a running back that's not going to throw or a quarterback that's not going to throw the running back, and a quarterback that, like, if he's good, he's going to be a fucking monster at the goal line and taking a bunch of touchdowns. So, like, I'm thinking like how Justin Fields just sucked up all the running back points from the Bears backfield last year, or how Jalen Hurts did that 2 years ago. Like, that's like the median outcome, I think, honestly, for this type of offense. And I just don't see the point of like taking that type of risk as your first round pick in this tournament. But you guys are making good points. Like, I see both sides of it, but I think
he'll fall to the early second. I think you're probably right about that. Or maybe even the mid. I mean, if it falls to the mid second. I mean, Sam, please get those tweets out there. I want mid second Jonathan Taylor. Like, don't.
Yeah, I would have no qualms at that price. Like, I feel it's an uneasy click for me, sort of at that turn, but at like 17 or whatever, pretty easy click.
I think it was Adams Taylor at the 112, and I was doubling it up, and I like looked at him. I looked at Taylor. I was like, "We doing this? We're doing it." But it's like that kind of. It's not like you're smashing the button at 112. So I could see him falling for sure.
Paul says neither of those QBs had RBs with JT's talent. I agree with that. Someone give me an example of the elite rushing quarterback who ran for 700 plus yards and their running back who was a top 3 running back in fantasy. Like, I don't think that exists. Maybe I'm wrong. Someone give me the example of that. I just don't think it exists. But
it's going to be a small sample.
Yeah, but
it may have never really happened before. That you would have had a guy that would qualify at Taylor's level.
Yeah,
but yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, it is thin. It's a 2-down rushing profile, which makes it thinner.
Yeah. The Newton CMC one is interesting, but that was really when Newton was no longer rushing for like 800 yards.
He was not.
People said that about CMC though. That was
That
was a thing.
But I mean, again, comparing
like,
CMC,
you can't be drafting CMC because he's not going to get dumped offs.
That's fair. So. But comparing CMC's receiving talent to Jonathan Taylor's, again, like be careful. The reason CMC hit is because he was an absolute, like, he caught 105 passes. Like, that's the reason he hit that year.
I know, but there was a thing of like, Cam doesn't check down. Cam's never going to throw to the running back. So like,
sure. I get that.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, Richardson's super inaccurate to the shallow area of the field, which is a major problem. But I do think that's more of a concern for like a Josh Downs or whatever, or like maybe even a Pittman to some extent, where it's like he's not, like, he's going to miss throws, but like maybe the tape guy's got to tell me, like, can he not, he can't do this. He can't get it to Jonathan Taylor 2 yards away. Like, they might build in, you might see some like kind of, deep and then read to Taylor, quick dump offs. Like, there might not be a lot of like underneath reads for him early on because he sucks at that. So I don't know. I guess like for me, it is kind of just the caveman take of like, Jonathan Taylor's really fucking good, dude. Like, they'll figure out a way to get him the ball. Like, and I don't think all the touchdowns are going to the quarterback, and I don't think he's not going to catch any passes this year. So like, if the offense is going to be better and Jonathan Taylor's still healthy and young, I'm going to take Jonathan Taylor.
It's a fair argument.
I'm with that.
I will still be fading at that price, but I totally hear where you guys are coming from. Let's move on to this chart here. Largest ADP risers since last time we talked. So about the last 10 days. No surprise who's number one on this chart. Talking about memeing players up draft boards. Anthony Richardson is approaching all-time meme territory.
I'm sad to report. I'm sad to report that Anthony Richardson is just simply undraftable at these prices. Come on, guys.
Get him in the puppy, Get him in the puppy.
Yeah.
Draft him at the same price. You might as well just take him.
Yeah. No, I'm with that, but I just like what's going to happen to his ADP when we start to hear the first inklings that Gardner Minshew is going to start in week 1.
I don't think he is, man. I don't think you're getting those reports. They were pretty emphatic that
Yeah,
quarterbacks
I
learn
forget
by playing.
that you're Mr. Press Conference. I don't know, man. It's just a lot. He started 13 games in college.
Hey, Josh Norris watches the press conferences too, and he was saying the same thing. Evan Silva's saying the same thing. The press conference gang, we think this guy's playing. Okay, he's playing out of the gate.
I mean, I can't possibly stomach not having Anthony Richardson if he runs for 15 touchdowns. So like, I'm going to take him a little bit, but I don't think this is a particularly good ADP.
Where would you? Because to me, honestly, I am still taking him some.
I think an equitable spot for him at quarterback is like right after Dak, right? So Dak and Tua. Like I would take Dak and Tua ahead of him. Honestly, partly just because of how good Tua's stacking partners are for Week 17 stuff. You know, like having Tyreek and Waddle. Obviously, I don't think I've ever taken Tua and not had those guys. So that's when the game we're playing gets a little bit weird and it starts to be less about individual valuations, you know? But yeah, I think quarterback 12 or 13 is right about where he should be. I think he clearly has a higher 1 week ceiling than Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, maybe Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Aaron Rodgers turns back the dial and is throwing 400 yards and 4 touchdowns again. I don't think so, but it could happen.
Yeah, I mean, if I have, the stacking partners, I'm going to but you do get to a spot in the draft where there's like not a ton of opportunity cost.
That is the other thing too, is it's kind of dead there.
The end, like I've lined up, I got Tyler Lockett and JSN on a team, and I lined up a Geno thing, and Geno went at like pick 99. So I'm like, what the fuck? I can't even get. So if Geno's pick 99, like I'm an idiot for taking Richardson at like 80. I'm fine. I feel fine.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
So I actually, to me, I'm like, I don't mind taking him over Dak. Like we know what McCarthy's going to do. He's going to ruin the fun.
That's true. I guess I'm thinking Dak that I know and love, not the Dak that we're about to see.
So yeah, I think Richardson actually is going to rise a little more because I don't think people are done. I don't think some people are starting to be like, I'm good. But like, I think he's going to keep rising. I think he's going to go. I think he's going to go into the mid 70s. That's where I think. That's when I think people will start. Okay, they'll like really freak out and be like, "What is happening? We can't do this." But until we're in the mid 70s, I don't think it stops.
So a couple things I want to point out. I did a ADP poll, and that was the consensus. The majority of people said in the 60 to 75 range. So yeah, call that somewhere in the middle around pick 70.
Oh, that's even higher than what I thought.
Yeah, that was the majority of responses. My take is like, I think he will get there in the next couple weeks, but then I think there's going to be a bit of a boomerang effect at some point. I'm not saying that we're going to get the Gardner Minshew is starting camp narratives or anything like that. I just think it's honestly like a combination of, maybe some reports like, he looks a little rusty out there, doesn't know all the offensive concepts. Plus, people who aren't sick like us and are casual college football fans are going to open the ADP and be like, that quarterback from Florida who was terrible last year is going at pick 75. Like, fuck that. I'm taking Dak Prescott.
That's a good point.
There's going to be that influx of people who are going to be like, who is this guy? I've never heard of him, or I followed college football. This guy was not that good. So I think like by September, it'll go back. I'm guessing like 90-ish. So I think like close to where he is now. That's my read on it. My take on his value is I think he is fine where he is now, but like no longer a huge value. And like if he goes to 70, 60, I'm like probably completely out. But like at 85, I'm still like, I'm kind of with you guys. Like, opportunity cost doesn't seem that high. If I have, a stacking partner for Dallas or Miami, I'm probably taking Dak or Tua over him. But other than that, like QB 10 seems okay to me at this point.
I like your read. That feels like what's going to happen. He's going to go up and then he'll come back down a bit.
We saw that with Sky last year. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, get your kicks in the puppy. If you feel like you don't have enough Anthony Richardson, go get your Anthony Richardson the puppy because that's a closed tournament. But if you buy what Sam's saying, and I think it's a good point, then this is probably the worst time to draft him in Best Ball Mania.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
I'm kind of with you. And it's just like there's some unpredictability element of it too, where you like take Pittman and you're like, do I need to take Richardson at like 66 now to make sure I get him?
Right.
Or like, you're like, how do I even stack this? Like, you get so insecure about it because there's these psychos taking him, super early. So,
well, Pittman's probably better off if they start Minshew, in all honesty. So, yeah. I wouldn't reach for Richardson too much, but I've done the same thing. I did the same thing today. I was like, oh God, am I going to get Richardson?
Yeah, it's tough. Let's move on to another sort of hot topic rookie riser. Dalton Kincaid is now up up to pick 116, up 31 spots from last time we talked. He is going, I believe, at the tight end 11 overall. So behind Freiermuth and Njoku, but ahead of guys like Dalton Schultz, Chigakonkwo, Cole Kmet, Greg Dulcich, etc. Davis, so in my opinion, this is going to come down to how do you project Buffalo's slot wide receiver rotation?
I can't get with this, man.
Yeah, so tell us why you think this is bad ADP.
I mean, so like it starts with pre-draft stuff where he didn't work out at all. Now, obviously, he was like a good receiving prospect. He was good at Utah, but so was Michael Mayer, and Michael Mayer worked out. That makes me like him more, which is not that I think Dalton Kincaid is, like Lee Smith out there, like unable, like not a good athlete or whatever. But then also it's just like a lot of like, well, okay, is Dawson Knox dead?
No.
Yeah, Dawson. So what Liam, obviously the bull, Liam's thing is like Khalil Shakir, Deontay Hardy, like don't exist, right? It's like these guys are afterthoughts because the Bills really wanted Dalton Kincaid, and he really is just going to be. He's Kyle Pitts, right? That's really what these people are saying is that he is not really going to be asked to block, and he's just going to be a slot wide receiver on a good offense. Kyle Pitts has never played on a good offense, but I don't know. I like Meyer 90 picks cheaper personally.
That's fair. Pat, any hope for Kincaid at this ADP? Are you on Davis's side, or are you more interested?
This feels too high to me. I mean, 116, like
he's the tight end 11.
Yeah, that's really, really high. I don't know. I mean, like I said originally, I was like, look, this is a 14th round type of pick. Like this is a guy that you're like hoping for playoff spike weeks from. He's not going to be a regular contributor because he's not going to be actually playing all that much. I mean, he's just not. Like Dawson Knox is going to be out there all the time as the tight end. I mean, I know they're saying like, oh, our two tight end set's now like a 3 wide receiver set. But like teams always going to say stuff like that. They just drafted him in the first round. They're not actually going to play a tight end as their full-time slot receiver. That's just, I mean, I am ready to be like really wrong about that because it's just like
how wrong are you going to be? How wrong? Like what would Dalton Kincaid have to do? Like tight end 6 is like nothing. Like if Dalton Kincaid finishes tight end 6 with 180 half point PPR points and scores 12 points in week 17, it affected you none. It just didn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, but pass snaps, Kyle Pitts played 22% of his pass snaps in line as a rookie. You don't want to lose those. We talk about tight ends blocking versus running routes. Like, I mean, maybe Arthur Smith would do this, but generally the Bills are not going to have a tight end blocking on passing plays all that often. It's going to be like the blocking component is about run blocking. So the ability to be in line, maybe you're looking like you're going to run and this play action play. You want your guy out there. You want him in line as a traditional tight end for the big chunk of snaps that he's going to have to play because he is technically a tight end, even if, like Kyle Pitts, he's basically a receiver. Kyle Pitts, he played over 40% of his snaps in the slot. He also played over a third of his snaps out wide. I don't think Dalton Kincaid's doing that. So I don't know. The Kyle Pitts stuff, like even that's like, even he isn't that guy. He's not Kyle Pitts that way. Partly because he's not even going to have a chance to play like as traditionally as Kyle Pitts. Dawson Knox is going to get all that inline stuff.
Let me give you like a less bullish case than Kyle Pitts in terms of rookie year role. What about what the Broncos did with Greg Dulcich last year? I think they essentially. So I'm pulling up this old stat chasing
This
stuff
is kind
from
of
last year.
It's kind of a touchy topic, Sam.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go.
Yeah, should we remove Davis from the stream while we talk about Greg Dulcich?
We might need to.
Anyways, I'm looking at weeks 10 to 13 last year. So this is a snapshot in time, not the whole year. Greg Dulcich had like an 80% route rate. If I remember correctly, and I don't have the numbers right now, that was heavily like a slot, basically a slot wide receiver role. So
33% in line.
33% in line. But still, that's like, so that what I'm saying, I guess, like I agree with you guys. I'm just trying to make devil's advocate case. Like, what if Kincaid plays all 2 tight end sets and is like the tight end who's running the pass route, Knox is in the block, and then in 3 wide receiver sets, he mixes in on like half of those. Like, that's not crazy, I think.
He's got to beat out Knox, basically. Knox has to be the guy coming in for extra stuff, and he's got to be the guy out there in line playing regular tight end. At this price. I mean, yeah. At the end of the draft, if you basically just have a part-time guy, because what you're talking about otherwise is he's running 55 to 60% of the routes. That sucks. That's the Colts situation from years past. Like, that is, and we do see that in the NFL. That's not uncommon that they would have a tight end room where, like, you know, one guy runs 45% of the routes, one guy's running 55 or whatever, or they split it up. And they'll be well over 100% because they will run this 2 tight end set that's basically a 3 wide receiver thing a fair amount, but not enough. I don't think enough. He's got to, and I'm not saying he can't beat out Knox, but I think it's like maybe a taller order than the market thinks. And I don't even know if that the market agrees that that's what they're betting on, but I feel pretty strongly that is what they're betting on. At this price, you're betting on him to beat out Knox to at least some degree.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I want to be in on Kincaid because I stare at that Bills pass catching core, and besides Diggs, it's like just guys that are not good at earning targets. Gabe Davis, you know, Dawson Knox, like Deontay Hardy, and whoever else. Like, man, if there is an opportunity for a number 2 guy and a tight end to step up, but I'm with you. Like, it seems unlikely that he earns this big role in year 1. But hey, maybe it's a week 15 through 17 play. But yeah, I think I'm probably mostly out on this price unless I have Josh Allen, and then I'm going to say fuck it and take him. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, right. So much of it does literally come down to, just take him when you're stacking, right?
I might take Knox, dude. If you're playing for touchdowns, like, Knox is still gonna be out there.
Knox is free.
Are you going to do the Chesley M and take both of them?
No, I'm saying Kincaid is overpriced. I believe I've been clear.
Yeah, just fucking do. Okay. I'll give you guys the floor. Pat, any guy on this list that we've talked about, guys that we actually don't like right now. I'm going to challenge you. Give me a guy on this list, a rookie riser, where you're still excited about their ADP.
Addison's still good. Gibbs still good. Bryce still good to me. Mingo, absolutely so unpalatable. So unpalatable to me at 132 as Adam Thielen's, jockstrap holder.
So you're hammering Adam Thielen at pick 1?
No, I don't. I maybe have not taken a Carolina Panther yet. I wonder if I've taken a single Panthers player. I maybe haven't.
So I have a sickness for, and this is probably something I need to get out of my game, but I have a sickness for the really fucking cheap stacks, the Texans, the Panthers, the Patriots.
Tell me you're not still doing the Thielen thing.
Hey, I'm not doing the Thielen thing. I'm doing the Mingo thing now. I've moved on. I was never really doing the Thielen thing, but there's something.
You were. You were doing Thielen Stroud.
Yeah, that's debatable. No one can fact check my exposures.
We'll get the data next year.
But like, to jump to this team chart for a second, like, there's this thing. Look at Carolina, look at Houston, look at New England, look at the Titans if you're actually that sick. if one of these teams is just like league average and you take the full game stack, that's actually like huge leverage. I kind of did this with the Jags last year, like Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, rounds 12, 16, 18. Boom, your team's going to advance, right? Like, and I think you can kind of make cases with Stroud, with Bryce Young. You pick the right pass catchers, you pick the tight end. So like, that's why I'm not saying draft Thielen. I'm saying that's why I'm okay with Mingo, because it comes in such a cheap package of stacks that like, if you get that right, that's actually huge leverage for your team, I think.
I actually completely agree. I think you don't even have to take the quarterback. You know,
sure.
You can have you can get like, and I love Chuba Hubbard where he goes. Miles Sanders is cheap enough where I'm still taking him, even though I think he's like the prototype of a dead zone running back, which is telling, I think a pretty strong indication the market has shifted in some big ways. So yeah, I'll still take him in like the 6th. And then I will take Mingo. I actually don't hate where Mingo's going. And I'm partly because I think this isn't where he stops. I think Mingo's going to keep going up. I think he's going to be more of like a 10th, 11th, like 10th. I guess he's kind of already 11th.
I'm kind of with you on Mingo. I mean, remember when we did
dude? The Panthers are going to be the 27th offense in the NFL.
Yeah. But there's no target competition, and they just took him with the 39th pick.
Honestly, and I don't know, you guys would know more about this than me. Does that like ever work out when a team just has like 8 shitty guys and you're like, one of them could be not shitty? Like, I don't know. Does it ever work out?
It's, there actually has been
who is the best wide receiver on the Texans last year?
I see your point. In the extreme scenario where the offense really does suck, you're right. But there has been some research. I think Zach Reason has done this. Like, where you get into the later rounds, your best bets are the wide receiver ones on a team. Like, once you're in, like, I think this is like,
I would buy that.
Plus.
I would buy that.
You get to a certain point, like, am I going to take Mingo or like Tyler Boyd, who I know is just the wide receiver 3 on the Bengals, or like, am I going to take Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is just like 5th in line for targets on the Browns, or like, I'm sure you can come up with better examples than me, but that's kind of in this range. Like, the wide receivers are just so.
Hang on, I'm gonna get Davis back. Davis, Jonathan Mingo is 6'2". He's 220 pounds.
You're not talking to 22-year-old me, dude.
Just remember what it was like to be young, dude. Just remember what it was like to be young. You're hanging out with your bros. You're looking at his 39.5-inch vert.
What I remember about that is Stephen Hill going for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in his first NFL game, and then never being heard from again. Just disappearing like the Loch Ness Monster. Don't
call him Stephen Hill. That's too good. That's too accurate.
Yeah, he evaporated, dude. Oh, it was too much. No, but I mean, come on, like. If Sky Moore had not just happened, Rice would be a 9th round pick already. Honestly, honest to God, he really would.
I kind of agree. I think
You're right.
I like Rice at this price, mostly because I don't really like Sky Moore, and I think Tony's fine. But
is Tony fine? Is Tony rocketing up?
Dude, I don't know.
It seems actually kind of insane. They didn't play him last year. They just were like, nah, he's not ready. And I know they're saying like, oh God, he's so good. He's so good at everything. But like, he's not good at getting on the field ever. He doesn't do that very well. And that's a problem for us.
Hey, when he gets on the field though, it's electric. What is it? He's top 5 in the NFL the last 2 years in targets per route run, because he runs like 6 routes a game.
Yeah. All 50 of them. He crushed those routes.
Yeah, those 12 targets and 37 routes. Really off the charts.
The truth the haters don't want to know is that he's just fancy Dexter McCluster.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. That's tough.
That being said, I'm not going to be caught with my pants down on Kadarius Toney. I'm going to have 18% of this dude come hell or high water.
I mean, I'm look, when I have Mahomes, I do try to get Toney. I try my best, but I mean, if he's going to get a lot more expensive than this, like he's got like every red flag there is outside.
He will get more expensive because as long as he doesn't get hurt in the preseason, they're going to keep gassing him up.
There's good people on both sides of the Toney debate, I think, that are going to keep that from happening. There's enough people who are saying Toney got 4 snaps in the Super Bowl last year versus the people who are saying he has, 100 targets per route run. So
But here's the thing about, because as someone who just said he had 4 snaps in the Super Bowl last year, I don't really want to be like that. I don't want that to be my brand this offseason. Yelling about Kadarius Toney, because he could certainly hurt me in a big way. Like,
he could bury you.
He could bury me.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Kadarius Toney could dead ass be
Yeah.
the top scoring wide receiver in fantasy. He really could.
Okay, well, you've lost me now. But he could be quite good.
If he
the top scoring wide receiver.
Kelsey gets injured.
Kelsey doesn't even have to get injured. 180 target. He stays healthy. He maintains something like his targets per route run as a full-time player, and his targets are coming from Patrick Mahomes.
Well, my point is that I'm not going to be vocally, tweeting up a storm, banging the table on every podcast saying, "What are we doing with Kadarius Toney?" I get it. I get the upside. We want to chase the upside. I probably will be underweight Toney and be nervous. So I actually don't know, Sam, that there's going to be a contingent brave enough to push back.
I see what you're saying.
I think he is going to keep going. If the Toney haters are feeling confident, I do think he's going to keep rising because he's not
Tony
a
faders
fun player.
You don't hate him that much.
The silent majority of Toney faders.
No, Corain doesn't hate him that much because he won't trade him to me.
I traded him away, dude. Didn't you see?
Oh yeah, you got Mike Evans.
I got Mike Evans. Yeah.
Let's talk some veterans. Less sexy names on this list.
Look at this value I'm getting from our game last week. Jerick McKinnon. I mean, what a closing line value.
Scummy. That was a scummy pick from you.
It was a total scumbag.
But man, this is like this is like the SpongeBob meme. How many times do you have to teach you this, old man? How many times do you have to teach you these veteran running backs when they fall to 180 and then they get signed, automatic 40 pick ADP?
Yeah.
So we're getting to a point now where like it's riskier, where like Kareem Hunt maybe is out of the league. Zeke, I don't know. But like it's just such a consistently good bet this whole offseason. Sure, maybe you're left holding the bag on like one of these guys loses out in the end, but like Penny, smash. McKinnon, smash. Damian Harris, smash. Like, dude, just take the free agent running backs. Like, I don't know why this is this big of a dynamic.
I'll defend the market on McKinnon quickly because they didn't want to sign him before the draft. There's basically like one team that's interested in bringing him back. Something happened at the end of last season where he got phased out, which was super weird. He's 31 years old. He could honestly have retired. So that's
sure.
But I mean, if your point is we should be taking Leonard Fournette and holding our nose and taking Ezekiel Elliott, you have me on the Fournette part. I'm still not taking Elliott, but I probably
Zeke,
should be.
Yeah.
I am. I'm brave enough. I'm brave enough to do it because it's
smart.
If the thing about Zeke is he just exists to annoy us, so he's going to sign and get an annoying amount of work.
But that's what Fournette exists to do as well. And I'm like,
there's plenty of meat left on this annoying bone.
There sure is. Yeah.
I think the like narrative that there's gonna like run out of landing spots for these guys, like once you factor in the 1 or 2 injuries that are gonna happen from now till then, once you factor in like maybe Breece Hall, Javonte, these like ACL guys not coming back as well as we expect, like spots are gonna free up for these guys. They're gonna get signed. Like it might not be amazing. You might not get, Fournette on the Bengals with Mixon getting cut. Like that's a fantasy. That's probably not going to happen, but they're going to have some role at some point.
So here's one thing I struggle with. Okay. Fournette is going at pick 190. Zeke is going at pick 160. I have to pay a 30 pick premium to get Zeke. And like the issue is I probably shouldn't get worked up about that and just take them both. But I have a really hard time. Like I'm making the same exact. It feels to me. I'm obviously it's not. They're two different people and we'll end up in two different situations. But it's like feel like the exact same bet, and one costs 30 picks more than the other. So I've had a really hard time taking Zeke. But I think that's a leak. I think I should just mix in Zeke more.
Yeah, I think it's. I am with you, Pat. I don't have my exposures up right now. I probably have like 30% Fournette or something disgusting, and like literally
I think I do too.
And like literally zero Zeke. But like if you're taking Zeke, I can't really make the argument against it. I think it's just like I'm making the same mental calculus as you, and I probably should just take a little Zeke, live a little. Let's talk Lamar Jackson a little bit. He's biggest riser, second week in a row. Man, this Lamar Jackson situation, I think it's like a little underrated how exciting it is for him. He's dealt with terrible pass catchers the last couple of years. All of a sudden, he gets Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman's coming back. Mark Andrews will be there. No matter what you think of Odell, I think Odell as a number 3 wide receiver, that's way better than what he's had in years past with like fucking Miles Boykin and whoever. Got Isaiah Likely, pretty talented pass catching tight end number 2. There's suddenly just a lot.
Duvernay is like a pretty solid number 4 at this point.
Dude, even Aguilar as a field stretching.
Yeah.
Like the depth is just a lot better. Like you're not putting out who's that Rotoviz like 5th round? Tylan Wallace.
Miles Boykin?
Yeah.
Tylan Wallace.
Yeah, you're not putting out.
Miss him every day.
Yeah, I drafted a lot of them at one point in my life. But anyways, this Ravens pass catcher core is a lot better than it's ever been. I almost wonder, like, we saw this chart of the Lamar Andrews projected ADP. It almost feels to me that like it could move to Andrews Lamar 2-3 turn. Like I think that's in the range of outcomes that could happen.
Can Lamar jump one of these quarterbacks?
I think based on stacking partners, it's so tough for him to jump Josh Allen because people are not gonna look back on the last couple of years and let that happen. So, man, it's tough. But there will be some people that take him, I think, at the 2-3 turn, and that's going to keep Lamar, I think, pretty safely in this like 27 to 30 range. I think.
I think what will I think that's right. I think what will happen is his ADP will hover around the 2-3 turn, pick 27 or something. Andrews will be the same. And some people, especially if Allen goes a little earlier than ADP, they'll go, I wanted an elite quarterback. All 3 are gone. I'm going Andrews Lamar at the turn. I think you'll see that a fair amount. I did it today. It's kind of fun.
I think you'll see that quite a bit too. And I also just think that like the Lamar and then pick your choice between Flowers and Bateman is like a pretty cheap stack with upside. I don't think like season long either Flowers or Bateman are gonna like absolutely smash or anything. I think just like weekly upside that individual stack pairing with one of those wide receivers is like pretty exciting. So
I think Bateman is pretty live to smash. He had a 9th round ADP. He was super efficient last year. I don't know what the deal. He wasn't running a full slate of routes, which was super weird. And maybe he won't this year, and that would obviously hurt. But that's a cheap price tag for a guy with talent and in a potentially much better situation. So, I really like. I take him a lot, even when I don't have Lamar.
I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor, but like I think the Liz Frank thing is like the one mental block for me getting all the way in on a Bateman. I know that injury has been like pretty tough for people to come back from, but again, I agree. Largely, I'm taking a lot of Bateman. That's like I think that's what's depressing is ADP. Honestly, is that injury risk in the back of people's minds. But Davis, what are your thoughts on Lamar at this price?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Yeah, no problem clicking that button. Like a 5-pick discrepancy between him and Justin Fields. People, I don't think I'm with Corain on Bateman though. Back-to-back years. I mean, I like in a perfect world where I could guarantee that his body functions properly. Also, you hate to say it, but there are some murmurings that the team thinks he's soft, right? That there's sort of that, Duvernay's playing banged up. We got these, I mean, how many anonymous dudes played wide receiver for them last year?
He broke his foot.
Well, didn't he have a foot injury the year before too? It was lower body. It was lower body the year before too.
I can't remember.
It was abdominal. It was like a preseason abdominal injury.
That's what it was. It was an abdominal thing.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe I'm applying this to someone. To me, the Beckham signing felt like kind of Bateman insurance, like to have another guy to play on the outside.
No, I definitely think that's the case. Like my concern with Bateman is that he doesn't get full playing time.
Yeah.
But I think that's somewhat priced in. He had 2.38 yards per out run last year, which is really good. He was a deep threat. He 13.2 ADOT. I think that's like what you want to see with the Lamar Jackson receiver. And at a 9th round ADP, I mean, we're talking like Michael. You want to talk about guys worried about their health? Like he's going next to Michael Thomas. He's going next to Cortland Sutton. I mean, this is the range where we take guys who are like, I don't know if this dude can do it, but if he can, it could be cool. So of
Bateman
those,
always,
that type, I like him more.
Bateman does. Whenever I'm in a draft and once like Bateman's gone, I'm like, okay, there's no wide receivers left. I'm taking some running backs. Like that is for me. He's that guy that's like the last of like the exciting wide receivers on my board for a while. Yeah. So I like Bateman a lot, but yeah, the injury risk, I think like we have to acknowledge does exist to some extent. But I think he's
But it's nice because we've talked a lot about guys who are going to be screaming up boards. He's not going to scream up boards. Zay Flowers is going to cap his potential price. So I think we're going to get him in this range and maybe even later, maybe once normies come in and these wide receivers fall a little bit. Could be a 10th, 11th guy, maybe if we're lucky.
Yep. Other things I'll point out here, Mixon, we've already sort of talked through him. He's up big. You're no longer getting like the huge sort of suspension risk discount on Mixon. He's up 17 spots to 64 overall. I expect that to keep going up until we get bad news for him. I think people are sort of baking in status quo as he'll be back. So I'm good with him at that price. A tier of the wide receivers at the 1-2 turn are all up. Amon-Ra, Devontae, Garrett Wilson. I think that's simply a product of Jonathan Taylor falling, which we talked about. So those guys are all just sort of taking a spot all up a little bit. I don't think any necessarily storylines to cover there. One other guy I want to talk about, Chris Godwin. I think like these Bucs wide receivers, it's a little bit like Amari Cooper last year, where like you could listen to 100 hours of fantasy football podcasts. No one wanted to talk about Amari Cooper last year, just like slipped through the cracks. Godwin and Evans are getting a little bit of that treatment so far this year. Like I think
Godwin is going behind Smith and Jigba.
Yeah. So
come on.
Give the sort of
I'd rather have Smith and Jigba.
No, dude, he's Chris Godwin.
I don't want anything to do with the Bucs offense, man. It's disgusting.
Except
and if I'm going in, I want to go in with Mike Evans. Give me a guy who can do it in like 2 targets.
I can't believe this guy. Oh, it's got a bar in it. I was going to put the Oklahoma helmet on and I was going to do a whole bit as Baker Mayfield, but now I can't because it's got like a strap on the inside of it.
I don't know. Like, can Baker be that bad with Godwin and Evans?
He was horrendous last year.
Settle down.
Horrendous.
He was playing for the Carolina Panthers. Terrible.
No, it wasn't horrendous. Sam Darnold was totally fine. That's why he's going to be starting quarterback for the 49ers.
He's got the greatest arm talent in the history of the 49ers organization. So
yeah,
kind of apples to apples here.
It's Baker. I'm going to pull it up on the EPA. I mean, he was fucking horrible last year. Like you go into this situation.
He was horrible.
Yeah, and like who is even their offensive coordinator? Because did they get rid of Leftwich, or is it still Leftwich?
I think it's still Leftwich. I'll check that.
Leftwich was he got exposed last year. They were doing really bad stuff. Like they were running on a ton of first downs. They had a horrendous run game, super low EPA per play. White was not effective as a rusher. Fournette was not effective as a rusher, but they kept doing it. They kept saying,
Pat, and then I got to interrupt you quickly. Offensive coordinator was Dave Canales, who just turned Geno Smith into comeback player of the year. So,
they've hired. Okay, so
they hired the Seahawks guy. It's not Leftwich. So
that makes me feel. That makes me feel a little better. It makes me feel a little better. Yeah, because Leftwich was. I mean, geez.
Yeah.
All right, that makes me feel a little bit better. But I mean, Baker was really rough. Baker and EPA per play was the worst in the entire league. Worse than Davis Mills, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson. I mean, he was terrible, and that includes his Rams snaps, in which he was a little bit better.
There's going to be a hilarious guy starting at quarterback for the Bucs this year. You're going to see Carson Wentz in there. You're going to see CJ Beathard. I think they're going to be rotating through guys very much like the Rams were at the end of last year, sort of like the Panthers were last year.
I'm making notes in my notebook right now.
But yeah, I don't know. And we got to get like our once per episode let's get Hayden on to explain how tradable Chris Godwin's contract is, because that's what I want to understand. Like, is there a legitimate chance that Godwin or Evans get moved at this point? Because I think if there's a chance, then that actually meaningfully like impacts how I think about those guys. But I don't understand.
If there's a chance that Godwin is traded, then he's a pretty big value.
Yeah.
But because I think if he were to get traded, given the contract, it would have to probably be to like a contender. I'm basically imagining the Chiefs in my head right now. And that's why I'm excited.
That's what I'm thinking. Like the Chiefs and Bills, it still feels like, trade deadline. The Chiefs and Bills like are trying to counter each other. Gabe Davis goes down. The Bills put all their chips in. And
the Bills are like, I don't know why we drafted a tight end to play slot receiver. This is really fucking stupid. Why don't we trade for Chris Godwin, who is a slot receiver? That seems way smarter. Yeah, I can see that.
That's what I'm trying to price in, but I don't know, man. Like I kind of learned this lesson a little bit last year with the Seahawks, where I was convinced Geno and Drew Lock were dog shit. I didn't take much Metcalf and Lockett. Sometimes just like draft good wide receivers when they're this cheap and like worry about it later. Sometimes works. So I still like Godwin.
Yeah, it is tough with like at least Metcalf, and obviously Geno is way better than we could have predicted or did predict last year. And so it didn't really matter the archetype of the receivers, but like it does concern me that Godwin is going to get there primarily on volume. And when you've got a bad offense, it's like they don't convert third downs into first downs. They don't sustain drives. Like they're probably going to be pretty conservative on offense. And I mean, they're still Todd Bowles' team. They're probably going to be pretty run heavy. Although I don't know who they're going to run the ball with, because White's not really an early down banger, but whatever. I'm just like struggling to see how this offense like really puts up points. And if I'm going to take a buck, I prefer Mike Evans, because it's like he can still get open deep and he's still huge. And, Baker will probably chuck it up to him occasionally and maybe he catches some. So, but I don't know. I guess I could be being too precise. Like Godwin is still really good. So, and he's cheap.
Yep. That's fair. It's certainly the Bucs certainly feel like
what could prepossess people to make Alan Lazard a riser, by the way?
I think I'm somewhat I think I maybe so I made the case for Alan Lazard on the show at pick 150. Let's calm down. Don't blame me for this. I made the case at literally like pick 150. I liked it then. I don't like it now. I want that on the record. I liked it at pick 150.
It's risen a ton. 40 picks. Holy shit.
But it's also like, okay, so the Jets thing, this is actually kind of interesting. The Jets have like come out and said they're not cutting Corey Davis, which like, okay, if you have to come out and say that, like that probably means there's a chance he's getting cut. Like, why are you being so defensive about it? But like the fact that they said that and there's a chance he's still on the team, like what the hell is this wide receiver rotation? Like I think Corey Davis is like a better outside receiver than Lazard is. So if he's on the team, isn't it Corey Davis and Garrett Wilson on the outside, Lazard playing in the slot? Like I don't know. This wide receiver room, like I don't know how to project it anymore. Randall Cobb's gonna probably play some amount. Nicole Hardman in there for gadget stuff. Like this could be a messy rotation. So with all these moves, I've been like less in on Lazard because my thesis was like Davis is cut. I didn't know Cobb was going to be there. He's going to be like 100% route rate guy. Now I'm like, man, I don't know. This could get messy quick. I don't know if it's worth it at this point. So curious if you guys have any thoughts on like, how does this Jets wide receiver rotation play out? It seems really messy right now.
I mean, whoever brought the best donuts in that week to the meeting, I think is probably going to play. I think Garrett Wilson is sort of immune. I think Garrett Wilson will just end up being fine. But yeah, I think playing time is basically doled out by like whoever Aaron Rodgers is least pissed off about at any given time.
Yeah.
Madison
not even really being silly, honestly. I do actually think that is what dictates it.
Whoever's like willing to listen to Joe Rogan with Aaron Rodgers in the locker room.
Whoever
does the moon landing.
Whoever will do what the Deshaun Kaiser story said. So he was Packers backup quarterback. He said the first time he met Aaron Rodgers, he was like, there's some 9/11 stuff you should really look into. That was their meeting. That was their conversation. That was how he met his backup.
Yeah.
How else do you guys?
So weird. So weird. None of his family talks to him. I did. I did want to mention that Madison Parkhill had a good article on tight ends, and he mentioned Tyler Conklin in that article, and I was kind of like,
I like Conklin.
Yeah, why am I not drafting Conklin? Conklin's he's starting there, right? And Rodgers tends to throw to his tight end, and so maybe that's the answer. Maybe we get Conklin in the 18th round, and we get Garrett Wilson in the 2nd round, and that's our Rodgers stack.
I've been taking a lot of Conklin 18th round, even without Rodgers. Honestly, just like a guy with two touchdown upside in the 18th round seems like a pretty good bet. Van Jefferson is up. That's the last guy I'll throw out here. I think
he should be up, man.
It makes sense.
He's going to play a lot.
Yeah.
It's Zay Jones. He's the Zay Jones. This year's Zay Jones, right?
That's what I think, honestly. I think that's the bet. I think does have to dodge like some guys there, Tutu, Puka Nakua, but like people are hyping those guys up a little too much, in my opinion. Like I think it's going to be Van in most scenarios. I don't hate Tutu.
I like Tutu.
Yeah,
I like Tutu, but Tutu's not. I mean, he's a tiny man. He's a rotational player. Like he's not gonna. I mean, there's open routes there. Like they got rid of Robinson, so they have to have like Tutu can play. He can be their full-time slot receiver. You know, if Cup's kicking to the outside or whatever. Which this makes Tutu's life tough because the Cup's so good in the slot. So yeah, it's like he's not they're starting outside wide receiver in 2 wide receiver sets. Van Jefferson is. And, in 3 wide receiver sets, Van Jefferson's going to be one of those guys, like almost certainly. He would really have to fall on his face. But he was a 2nd round pick, and he's been like not good at any point, but like not horrendous. So I think he's out there.
Yeah, Van Jefferson in 2021, the year the Rams won the Super Bowl, 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, that's a smash of a pick at 180. And I think that was with him being a clear wide receiver 3. They had Robert Woods there. So there's even upside for a bigger role than back then. So I like the pick quite a bit. It's certainly not sexy, but I do think the Rams are one of these offenses. I forget who coined this term, but like carnival offense, a team that's not that good of an offense, but has just a dog shit defense and has to throw a ton. I think McVay could just assume this is a big if Stafford's health is okay. I think you could see the Rams lead the league in pass attempts, a la Brady last year on the Bucs. Not be that efficient, but just pass a shit ton. Some of these tertiary guys are going to have some value. So I kind of like these gross Rams stacks late.
The tight end article that I just got out this morning was supposed to be an article about Stafford. That's how I started down the rabbit hole and kind of won. I'm going to end up kind of writing the articles that led me to the tight end article eventually. But yeah, it started as I'm backdoor stacking with Matthew Stafford a lot. And he does strike me as the type of bet in those late rounds that makes sense because you can take him as your 2nd quarterback and be done, which is I think what you want to do generally in the late round. If you're going to be diving into the late rounds of quarterback, you want a guy who actually can start all year for you and give you a little bit of upside as a pocket passer, that he generates a well-timed spike week. Stafford just really shouldn't be there. I kind of love getting him in the 14th, and then it's beautiful because you can get Jefferson and Tutu and Higbee. They all go behind him, so you can backdoor stack it so easily.
I'm all in on that Ram stack. I honestly should be doing it more. Man, the Ram. I don't know. This is a stupid point, but the Rams won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Stafford threw for nearly 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. Sometimes it's as simple as that. He showed us that ceiling 2 years ago. Again, obviously, am I projecting him to do that this year? No. I get why it's cheaper, but it's gone too far, I think.
Well, so the late round quarterback strategy, which, this is best ball, so we're not doing that anyway, but also, the emergence of this hyper elite tier of quarterbacks is kind of shaking up the quarterback field. But, a lot of the reason that the late round quarterback strategy was working so well in previous years is that we can't predict passing efficiency. That's like what JJ Zacharyason's talked about. It's like if you're betting on, like if you're taking the pocket passer who just is coming off a really efficient passing season and letting the pocket passer who had a down season fall, that traditionally has not like been a great way to go. And I think like with a guy like Tua, he's got the weapons. Like I'm kind of in on that, but like, I mean, Davis, I don't want to upset you here, but like, would you be shocked if Stafford threw for more yards than Dak Prescott?
I would be a little surprised because the weapons the cupboard is fairly bare. Maybe just removing out. Yeah, I mean he does. So
you got Mike McCarthy running 30 times a game too. So
yeah, no, it could happen.
It's possible. It's unlikely, but I'm kind of with you, Pat. Like it's not crazy, dude. Again, Stafford 2 years ago, we were drafting him in the 90s last year. I don't know. His ceiling is being like a Tua type, just an elite pocket passer.
Yeah, you're right. Right. You're getting an 8th round, 9th round value in the 13th, 14th round, which is a pretty big win, especially because the way I like to build the Stafford is he's my second quarterback and I'm done. Like I can not always do this. Like maybe I would tack on another guy or add Stafford as a third, but that's part of the appeal for me is that I feel like I can build with him almost like last year, right? You might have taken Stafford in the 8th or 9th. I mean, that's the funny thing, right? Stafford wasn't really going that far behind Dak. That's one of the reasons I mentioned him because it's like really like last year we wouldn't have thought that was crazy at all.
Yeah.
And now it seems like this impossibility because Stafford had a bad season. But if you last year were to take like Stafford in the 9th and Aaron Rodgers in the 10th or whatever, maybe 8th, 9th, depending. I think that might have actually been more like the ADP, but you would have been very comfortable stopping at 2. And now, you can basically do it the same, but just a few rounds later. So, yeah.
Makes sense. Time to get Gretch to tout Van Jefferson. Yeah, talking for 20 minutes on Van Jefferson was very intentional with Gretch out tonight. This is the only way would be able to do this. But let's move on to the fallers here. Some obvious ones that I don't think we need to talk through because they're just frankly so obvious. Ken Walker falling, Tyler Allgeier falling again, Jameson Williams falling again, Josh Palmer falling again, Dawson Knox falling again. It's really sort of obvious to me why all these guys are falling. They all sort of had guys drafted ahead of them that are pushing them down, besides Taylor, but we've already talked through that. I think the one I do want to talk about is Montgomery. We talked about Gibbs. I do think that like Detroit is just in a position, they did this last year where so many of the points on this offense are going to funnel to the running backs, both through the passing game, rushing at the goal line. Where do we think Davis Montgomery ultimately falls? And are you interested in him if like, say he falls to like pick 100, he's more sort of like a 0 RB target. Like, are you interested just because of the upside of that offense? You got the contingent value.
He just becomes like a handcuff guy with a little bit of standalone value there. Like, I become interested there. At this price, not so much. I am starting to get interested in Kenny Walker though. Now at 46, running back 15, that feels palatable to me.
Yeah, I've taken him once. He fell all the way into the 5th. And that's kind of what I think he is now. I think he's more of like a 5th round value, but an early 5th round value. And so yeah, if he's like at the 4 or 5 turn, I feel pretty confident taking him.
Yeah. He definitely profiled like at that point, you just need a couple big spike weeks really for him to pay off. And that's exactly what he profiles as, like bad success rate, but huge breakaway runner.
Yep.
So yeah, I think his fall should stop soon. We'll see. He might. I thought I was definitely going to be underweight on him, but his fall has been a lot more rapid than I expected. So we'll see where that ends up. Any other followers here? I honestly think this isn't the most exciting list to talk through because it's so obvious. But anyone want to talk through any of these players?
I mean, they're just all sort of reactions. Allgeier, obvious. Palmer, obvious. Gainwell, like it's just exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah, I'm taking Allgeier at this point, though. I think he's a handcuff. He's a clear handcuff. And they're going to run enough to where he'll actually get a little bit of run. It's not a great, like he's probably like Gus Edwards from 2 years ago. Like it's not, a great pick at that level, but I've mixed him into rooms where I'm like, I think you'll like score a touchdown in the first 3 weeks, something. Get me a little production to help me along, and you have contingent value. So maybe I just like my former linebackers too much, but I'm starting to mix him in now that he's down the 150s.
This is a deep cut, but because I've been doing some of these 20 round stuff, like I have Cordarrelle Patterson staring at me in the 20th round on PPR sites. Like because
he's got cap casualty and goes somewhere where he just gets sick design touches upside.
That's kind of what could he do like a McKinnon type bit role? He's like comparing him to McKinnon isn't completely fair. He's actually kind of more of a pure rusher than McKinnon, but I don't know, man. It just feels like he has outs. It also is like Atlanta's pass catching core is like name Atlanta's wide receiver 3. You can't. Like, could Patterson get slot snaps in that offense? I don't know. Like I've been thinking about him as like an 18th round pick just because like I think he's still good at football and like can use some spikes, but maybe that's overthinking it with him.
He's 32 years old, so that's obviously a huge issue, but he is an amazing kick returner. And so that could save him. If he's it's probably a reason that they would keep him. He only costs like $5.5 million.
Yeah.
So they might keep him just for the fact he's such a good kick returner. And which means he would be active on game day though.
That's what I'm thinking. Active game day, like has contingent value as a running back. Plus, could he be their slot wide receiver? I don't know. I've been 20. This is like no one cares about talking about Cordarrelle Patterson right now, but I think 20th round, he's like somewhat interesting.
I
the FFPC has those 28 rounders. You can get him in there.
Oh yeah. After I take my third kicker, I'll take Cordarrelle Patterson.
That's right. Actually, I was thinking there's a kicker in D. That's horrendous.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. I do want to talk through some of these other things quickly. The team stack stuff that I think is more interesting is actually, so this is the double stack. I'll skip past this. But I do want to talk about like the mega stack stuff where we've talked about this all off season. The Bills and the Chiefs, when you look at it from team level ADP, so this is average of the top 5 guys on a team by ADP. The Chiefs and the Bills stand out as discounts relative to how, like, we know Mahomes and Josh Allen, they're locks for top 3, top 4 quarterback play in the NFL. Like, if they're healthy, like, pretty much lock them in. But their teams are still pretty cheap. Like, they're cheaper than the Lions, the Vikings, the Jags. And I think part of me, like, that feels wrong. And that's why you see the rise of guys like Sky, Kincaid, etc. So I'm like, I don't know. Again, I think I'm kind of like beating a dead horse at this point a little bit, but like, this kind of breaks my brain a little bit. Where like,
we don't know where the targets are going.
Yeah. But they got to go somewhere, right?
I'll tell you one thing is I think both Bills running backs are really interesting.
Yeah. I think you can take them together too.
You probably can, but it strikes me like, and it's funny because one of the situations that has turned out to be like a real 0 running back win has been the Bills backfield in the past. And now we have like, the Zach Moss, Devin Singletary year from like 2 years ago where they were going like basically both right here. And I think you want to be overweight both these guys with the understanding that one of them is probably going to bust, but that's all right, because I think one of them could be a total smash. I like Cook a little bit better. So does the market. Damian Harris has moved up enough to where I don't like love taking him. I think I took him in the 10th today. I don't love that. I wish he was more like at 11th or 12th, but I'm still taking him. So that's one way to get more exposure to this offense where, there's uncertainty, but the uncertainty could like really break in your favor where like, I don't know, Khalil Shakir's things are going to like really break in his favor, or is he going to be kind of a rotational player?
Well, that definitely helps answer the Dalton Kincaid question.
Yeah. And I think my favorite, maybe not my favorite Bill, but a Bill whose value I like Hardy was signed to decent money. And I think like has a decent chance of being their wide receiver 3, and he's completely free now. Like he shut up a little after they signed him, but people I think are just got bored of that idea. He was an exciting deep threat for the Saints a couple years ago. I like that 18th round pick in Bill stacks, just completely for free. You might be getting their number 3 wide receiver. Who knows?
It is a little tough because we don't know if he's even going to like play. But I took him today. I think it was today. I took him recently because I was taking him a lot before, and then I think the market's cooled because of the Kincaid pick a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
But I believe he's another returner. Yeah, he's averaged 25.4 yards per kick return over his career, which is really good. 75 kick returns. No, sorry, that's his longest. What is he? 75 kick returns. Never scored a touchdown for some reason. Punt returner as well. He's okay. So that again, like we're looking for guys who are going to be active on game day when we're down this late, and I think he probably will be.
Yeah, that's fair. Some of these things we've said before. San Francisco too low. So I kind of get that in some ways. Josh says that San Francisco is too low, but man, like the quarterback uncertainty is the reason that's so low. I think, frankly, Lance is like falling. Purdy's not that expensive, and to me, you made this point, Pat. Like guessing at quarterback and being wrong hurts you a ton. Whereas I'm not so sure that it helps you a ton if you get that one right. So.
Unless it's Trey Lance and he finishes quarterback 5.
That would help.
That would help.
But Purdy probably doesn't help at all.
Yeah.
Probably not. Well, if you start, I think one of the things that was interesting to me, I was looking at I dug into this last year with the rookie class being so weak, and was like, I kind of was like trying to talk myself into Malik Willis, and I couldn't do it because I was like, even like Josh Allen had kind of whatever win rates in his rookie season. So it's like about, and Allen started like, who was it? Basically, any of these guys who aren't starting are costing you a lot because you really, I mean, you definitely don't want a dead roster spot when you're entering the playoffs. But if you're burning that roster spot on a quarterback, which doesn't give your team a ton of upside, and then they're not even on the field, it just really hurts you. So I think even if Lance like did emerge, wouldn't it be down the stretch? Or I don't know. He would have to take the job for the whole season. Any of these guys probably have to take the job for pretty much the whole season to really pay off.
I think if you're going to do the Lance thing, you do like a weird kind of 3 quarterback build where you completely punt quarterback and then you take like Stafford, Lance, and Howell, or insert late quarterback that you like there. Something like that combo. So he's in a 3 QB build and maybe you have Stafford shielding him for, most of the season. Something like that seems okay. I don't think that's my preferred way to play it, but I think you kind of have to take Lance in 3 quarterback builds, which like immediately limits sort of how.
I think if you're doing it, just like go balls to the wall and go like Josh Allen, Lance, and just be like, I'm barely gonna need you. Please be there when I do.
I guess that's fair too. I was thinking you want the 2 other guys to balance him out, like not playing, covering the bye week, but
right.
That's fair too. I think that's reasonable. These are the cheap teams. We've kind of made this point. I think there's some cheap teams with upside if they're just okay and not horrible. The Patriots. I'll make a quick case for the Patriots. They don't
have Matt Patricia doing architecture in the office and calling plays.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, that's the entire case. But they were a top 10 scoring offense in 2020. 2020.
People are leaving Mac Jones for dead, man. I tacked him on as a 3rd quarterback. I guess the only thing with him is like, do you buy that he's at risk of losing his job to Bailey Zappi? In which case he's a terrible pick. If he has job security, then I think he's a pretty decent pick. Still not a great pick.
Yeah. That's the thing. I've been stacking the Patriots without Mac because
that's probably the way to go. Yeah, that's sharper.
If we get to September and
it's a
Mac Jones
it's a good backdoor stack though. If you got an expensive team, if you have a Mahomes or a Hurts or an Allen, you can do Juju,
or if you get locked out,
you can do Gesicki. Yeah,
Thornton's sitting right there. You can get Thornton very easily.
Hunter Henry and Gesicki is a little bit like the Knox Kincaid thing. Hunter Henry is their starting 10. Like, people are getting this wrong. Hunter Henry is their starting tight end. Like, I don't get Gesicki like 40 picks ahead of Hunter Henry. We just
did this. You're drafting Jonnu again. Congratulations. You drafted new Jonnu.
You're drafting Jonnu. And the only, like, if you're telling yourself a story where he's the big slot, again, you're telling yourself the Kincaid story. It's not a story that happens very often. He's going to be a 50% route guy in this offense or something like that.
Yeah. Hey, guess what? Michael Vick's been a slot guy his entire career. He's never done anything.
How mad are people going to be when Jonnu Smith scores more half PPR points than Kyle Pitts this season?
Oh,
God. This is gross. I'm mad at you.
like would that be the worst thing Arthur Smith has ever done?
I don't know. Whatever.
I'm legitimately upset. Ruined my night.
Who was the guy the week after Kyle Pitts?
I'm not going to sleep.
Michael Pruitt had more touchdowns last season than Kyle Pitts has in his career.
Oh, come on. Davis is tired and wants to go to bed. He's trying to sabotage.
Davis is tired.
Right
He's
now.
trying to get us.
He's trying to sabotage.
Yeah, I'm getting the outro music lined up. It's working. God.
Oh man, I don't know if I have the energy for a heated running back versus wide receiver debate.
No, let's do it. I want it. Let's do it.
You want to do it?
Yeah, I thought this was the whole night. I've been sitting here waiting to argue about running backs, and you tell me about like fucking Kenneth Gainwell's falling. Like, all right,
and we're talking about Van Jefferson versus Puka Nacua for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I want this running back debate. I'm all geared up for it.
Okay. Let me lay.
You lay the ground because I actually think we might agree too much. So you give me some things to disagree with because I think we generally might agree somewhat.
Okay. So what this chart is basically you look at the blue lines. That is what the ADP was last year for these different positional tiers. So look at quarterback 1. We see that blue line is around 65, 70 ADP. That means the average quarterbacks 1 through 12 last year were going at around pick 70. This year we see that black line quarterbacks are going at around pick 50, quarterbacks 1 through 12. So that's how you read this chart. It's looking at the different positional tiers by ADP and the shifts from last year to this year. So you see quarterbacks, that black line is below the blue line. That means quarterbacks are more expensive than they were last year. Running backs, you see the blue line below the black line. That means that running backs are cheaper than they were last year. So that's kind of how to read the chart. I want to zoom in, actually take out some of the deeper stuff. I'm taking out the tight end 2s, whatever. This is just sort of the tiers we care a little bit more about, I guess. This is quarterback 1s, running back 1s, running back 2 and 3s, wide receiver 1s, wide receiver 2 and 3s, and tight ends. So same chart, I'm just sort of zooming in a little bit. The biggest thing you'll notice in the draft landscape this year compared to last year is the quarterbacks are going much more expensive. The running backs are going much cheaper, and the wide receiver 1s are going more expensive. Not the wide receiver 2s and 3s, just sort of the wide receiver 1s are actually going more expensive compared to last year. And I think honestly, and I wish I had the chart to pull up, but I think drafters are kind of learning the wrong lessons from last year in terms of how scoring went. Running back 1s who are now going at pick 20 by ADP instead of wide receiver 1s who are going at pick 10. Running back 1s actually outperformed wide receiver 1s in terms of delivering spike weeks at the running back position. Where running backs really got hammered is the running back 2s and 3s got absolutely smashed by the wide receiver 2s and 3s. So I think like an appropriate reaction to that should have been to basically keep the running back 1s priced where they are, maybe slightly cheaper. I'd be okay with that. But what people are doing now is essentially saying wide receiver 1s are much better bets for spike weeks than running back 1s by ADP. Like, it's a huge gap. Like, average of 10 ADP for wide receiver ones, average of 20 ADP for running back ones. Like that's a big gap. That's why we see, Ramondre going near DK Metcalf. In my opinion, that's like insane. Josh Jacobs going next to T Higgins. In my opinion, like that's just wrong. So I think that's my argument, is that like, I'm totally with you, like wide receiver heavy builds. But to me, we're punishing the running back ones when we shouldn't be. And there's sort of this elite tier of running backs where if you don't get them, I don't think you can match their ceiling. And I think people just don't want to admit that, zero running back works, but it's not because these running back ones don't have massive ceiling and aren't sort of efficient by ADP. Like we've seen that for several years, that if you want upside at running back, like get one or two of these high upside running backs. So that's how I kind of view the ADP landscape. That was a lot. Pat, were you right that we sort of agree more than we disagree? Or
well, I think we agree in that, like, if you're sitting at the 105, and I had Pete on the Legendary Upside podcast earlier this week, and he was making the point that like the comfiest spot in the draft right now is like, 104, 105. You grab like Tyreek Hill, and then you can get like Tony Pollard and Ramondre Stevenson, or Tony Pollard and Josh Jacobs, or Breece Hall. Breece Hall comes back in the mid third. I mean, like I feel like there's like so much agreement on that I'm surprised it's still happening. Because that is really comfy. You just grab that wide receiver one, and then you can get the running back in round 2 and 3. I think the thing maybe that we disagree on somewhat is like that. Like I'm probably doing more of the one running back version of that. Like I'll often take like I'll do Olave if I'm further up. Like if I'm out of the like let's say 102 or 103, and Olave's there. It's obviously if I have McCaffrey, but let's say I had like Jamar Chase, grab Olave, and then I'm like, I know there's going to be a running back here. Like that part I'm not worried about. What I'm worried about is I don't really want to go running back right now. And the reason is that I don't want to ever get locked out of wide receiver. And in these rooms, you can get like really locked out. You can piece it together. Like I had one where I had like 3 wide receivers, I think through like 8 rounds, and tacked on like kind of a guy who didn't really belong, like maybe in the 9th or 10th. And then I got like Nico Collins and Alec Pierce, and, I probably took Mingo or whatever. Like I'm like, I have to dig out of this hole, but like, that's a spot that I like rarely want to be in. And I think that is partially what's driving the ADPs in the early rounds, is that I think drafters generally like feel really comfortable taking running backs in rounds like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you'll see like in these drafts, the whole board will be green. And anytime I get to that pocket of the draft, I want to be ready to go at running back. I want to be like, hell yeah. My whole draft is set up to just take 3 of these dudes. And this draft fell to me beautifully. A lot of the drafts fall that way. And so I guess like I would sort of, I kind of push back on the idea that like this is somehow like bad or inefficient. I don't know that it is necessarily inefficient once you consider how the rest of the draft is going to play out as a result of the wide receivers continually kind of they're priced up early, and then there's not a discount later. And so it just creates this massive cliff at wide receiver. And I think you're really at a disadvantage if you aren't, sufficiently loaded up before that cliff hits. So while I do think that the 2-3 turn and it's beyond the turn, it's the middle of the 3rd round, you're getting running backs, like really good running backs. That's definitely something you want to be taking advantage of for sure. But I don't think it's something to be like, I'm throwing out everything else and I'm just focusing on this, because I think if you build all your drafts around that, you're going to get really, really burned in some of them. But you're probably doing that more than me, so I don't know. Are you finding that?
So I'll say a couple things. Number one, the reason why I think it's okay to like just completely zero in on that and ignore everything else is because like we showed at the top of the show, I do think this ADP is going to correct. Pollard's going to be a mid-second pick. Jacobs is going to be a mid-second pick. If you want these wide receiver, running back combos, I don't think maybe in these piss boy drafts, repeats drafting in all summer, maybe he can get those whenever he wants. I kind of buy that.
He will.
But in a normal draft, you're not gonna get those. So that's what I'm saying. Like I'm doing probably 25. I actually haven't started drafting at all before the schedule, but when I do start drafting, I'm probably doing like 25 drafts in June or something. I'm probably like at picks 1 through 5. I'm doing that wide receiver, running back thing as much as I can. Then like 100% of the time, if the room allows me to, because I have a strong belief that ADP is not going to hold. Jacobs in the 3rd round is not going to hold. Ramondre at pick 32 is not going to hold. So that's the first thing I'll say. I do agree with you though, that like part of the element, right, is like if you don't take wide receivers early, like I'm certainly not advocating for, like if I go running back early, I'm not tacking on like another running back in the 4th, or like I'm not really searching out another running back in the 5th or 6th. Like I am playing it how you're describing it, where I take those 2 running backs in rounds 2 and 3. I'm waiting until that round 9 through 12 range, and I'm probably taking like 2 guys in that range, right? So I still feel like I'm getting the sweet spot, 9th to 12th round running back range. Like I'm still getting a couple of those guys in those drafts, and then like either I'm stopping or maybe I'm tacking on Fournette as a 5th running back in the 18th or something like that, right? So, I just think that people are galaxy braining, like, oh, and not to pick on Pete, but I watch his streams a lot. Obviously, he's super sharp, but like what I see him do a lot of the 2-3 turn is like, oh, like the 2x2. If I take Olave here, then I can still get like Ramondre in the 3rd, and like I kind of get that line of thinking, but like some people are almost pretending like you can't just go running back in the 2-3 turn. And I'm not saying that's what Pete's doing. I'm not trying to like set up some straw man for him, but I think a lot of people are overthinking that when like comparing. And I pulled up this chart here, like comparing running back ones, like, Jacobs is like the running back 8 or something versus like T Higgins. Just like historically, that running back 1 bet is just such a higher bet for a spike week than that wide receiver 2 bet, particularly like the wide receiver 2, who's the wide receiver 2 on his own team. That's a whole other topic. But like, man, I think you're overthinking it a little bit if you're like doing that, like, I might be locked out in the 7th or 8th. Like I'm just doing like, hey, I'm taking, Cooper Kupp. I'm taking 2 running backs. I think I can take 3 wide receivers in the next 4 or 5 rounds and like be okay. I'm not that worried about it when like I think that just like Pollard versus T Higgins, like Metcalf versus Ramondre, like it's just such an obvious like ceiling projection of one guy is like so much better than the ceiling projection of another guy, like in my opinion and how I look at things. That like I'm just not overthinking it that much, especially when I think the ADP landscape is going to be changing. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I think one thing for me is like, it makes it a little more difficult is I think Mark Andrews is a really strong value right now. I think I don't want to be completely locked out of the elite quarterbacks. And so that's like one reason that I'm not just absolutely hammering kind of wide receiver, running back starts. But I think that's, the fact that I do feel pretty strongly that the ADPs are going to shift. I wouldn't be like shocked if these guys like stuck a little later than we had projected to begin the show, but Breece Hall is either going to be like a 7th round pick or a late 2nd round pick, right? Like we're going to feel good or bad about his knee. I don't think he's going to be in the mid 3rd. Ramondre, it does seem really surprising that he's in the mid 3rd. So I think with like, if you have the chance to go wide receiver, Pollard, running back, something like that, I mean, that's probably not going to be around later. So I think I'm like maybe a little bit less excited about the prospect of loading up on that, like on a really high percentage of my teams, but it's a weird construction. It's not a construction I've ever really done much of, and I'm doing it a fair amount. So, I think largely we're on the same page. That it's definitely like an offering that the market is providing right now that is not common and gives a lot of upside to the build.
Yeah. I want to, I know we're keeping Davis up, Pat. I'll continue this conversation if you want, but let's let Davis get out of here. Davis, give us, it doesn't have to be long. Give us your best ADP value before you go, if you got one top of mind, and then we'll let you go to bed.
Chris Godwin.
Baker Mayfield stacks, baby.
Beautiful. I'll see you guys soon.
See you, Davis. Pat, to your point, like I get what you're saying, and like if I had to commit to again, if I had to commit to 100% of my teams being wide receiver, running back now, I would not do that. But again, like I think I'm
No, I'm not saying that's what you're doing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like I really think these combos, like there's going to be a window once we know week 17 and like before this ADP changes. I think it's going to be kind of a tight window where you can get these type of starts in. And I just think that like they're to how I look at things and like how the math shakes out historically. Like I know we don't always agree on all those things, but like I don't know. I think you'd agree with me, right? That like ceiling projection, like Ramondre versus like DK Metcalf, like is that even close for who has the higher ceiling?
no, I
Like,
think
for you?
Ramondre's got a higher ceiling for sure.
Yeah. And like
I think one of the things though is that like this ADP environment is creating a pocket of value at running back later in the draft. And when things shift, it will also shift the other pockets of the draft so that, you know, you're going to be potentially in a situation where there isn't that massive cliff at wide receiver. And later in the summer, taking an early round running back actually in some ways feels more comfortable, you know, at least to someone like me who's thinking about what my wide receiver 5 is going to look like in the second round. So like that part of it, you know, and to be honest, I think that is an advantage of drafting right now. Like I think, you know, getting like, I want to be overweight on the James Cooks and the Zach Charbonnets. Like I think Zach Charbonnet he's a second round running back with size, you know, on a team who likes to run the ball. I know Kenneth Walker's there, but like he has a contingent bet as a guy who's, you know, Kenneth Walker misses 2 games. I think Charbonnet's really nice. You know, I think there's a lot of guys in that range that I do like taking. So, and guys who I like taking, and then I feel like my overall team strength is pretty nice. Like where if you're going to do a 2v2, and I know you wouldn't like necessarily do this because you could be taking a quarterback in the 9th round, you know, if you went wide receiver, running back. But the wide receivers available in the 9th round generally suck, you know, or the 10th round, it really sucks. And so, yes, I'm giving up some projection in the 1v1 in that early round if I'm not taking, you know, Ramondre Stevenson for DK Metcalf, which would probably be the most extreme example. I'm like, wait, I didn't include DK Metcalf in my top 36. I think she's like,
yeah, it's extreme.
But it's extreme. But like, let's say Deebo Samuel versus Ramondre, like, but I'm not, you know, I could talk myself into Deebo. You know, I could talk myself in there because I'm going to be able to get a running back later, and I'm going to be able to get, you know, a few running backs, not just like one dude who I'm like hoping he falls. It's like it's fertile ground in that pocket of the draft, and that also does strike me as something that may be part of the drafting landscape in May. It might not be. We might not feel as good about that pocket, partially because we'll get more information about which ones of those were not as good bets as we thought, and which were really good bets. But that's kind of like one of the overall reasons that I'm kind of like, you know, sometimes I'll skip. But here's what I'll say: I am going 0 running back a lot less than I'm used to. I did one 0 running back draft today that was pretty fun. I got Rachaad White as my RB1. I think I did elite quarterback and elite tight end, which is kind of, you know, how I got there. But maybe that's like another caveat to all this stuff is that, you know, normally you might just do a traditional 0 running back build. In this ADP environment, you probably want to be going like at least one elite onesie if you're doing 0 running back, because the running back values that you're passing on are really strong. You want to be hammering people at a different position other than just wide receiver.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, I think we agree on like the different groupings of like when to target guys. Like I have no pushback on that running back range. There's a lot of guys I certainly like in there. And like I said, I'm mixing, I'm, you know, when I do these wide receiver, running back builds, I'm targeting 2 guys in that range. I still think that's like a fair allocation of running back draft capital. But I see what you're saying to some extent. I guess for me, it's just that like, I am like so, and watch me be wrong about this, but like I am so confident that these running back ADPs in the 3rd round are not going to hold. Whereas like I am not that confident about some of these running backs in that range. Like Charbonnet. I could see the story for Charbonnet going up. I could see the story for Charbonnet going down. I could see the story for Madison going up. I could see the story for Madison going down. Like for me, it's a little bit like, yes, I know some of these guys will go down, some will go up, but it's just so clear and obvious to me that like some of these running back ADPs are wrong. And just on the focus of getting like closing line value, getting a diversified portfolio at good prices, to me, it just seems like, I don't know, like it's not like this hasn't happened before. Last year, Saquon Barkley.
Saquon was on the 2-3 turn to start.
Yeah. People were so down on him because he got injured the year before. He was the
who are you targeting? Like if you're, because there's so many of these guys. And I think it's, honestly, if there was just like one dude, if it was Jacobs, he would already have moved up. But it's the fact that you like, it's like, I don't need to decide. And so if I don't need to decide, then why am I deciding now? Because I might as well take the wide receiver or the quarterback who I'm not going to be able to get in the third round. Yeah. But who are you targeting of this group?
So my favorite targets are, so I'd say there's a total of 6 running backs that go in this range. Chubb, Pollard, Henry, Jacobs, Brees, and Ramondre. The 4 guys I've been taking the most are Chubb, Pollard, Jacobs, and Ramondre. Skipping on Brees is purely just like the injury thing where I think there's a chance it could get worse before it gets better. But I'm actually revisiting that. I think I'm going to like mix them in.
I think Brees might be the guy. If you want to talk about upside, if he's healthy, I mean, he is, I mentioned the legendary upside screener that I have. He's the top guy in it. He's ahead of McCaffrey in it. He's 20. I guess he's going to turn. He might have already turned 22. No, he's about to turn 22. He's got the size. He was used on the goal line. He was super efficient on the ground last year at 2.00 yards per route run, which is the highest of any running back here. These are all career numbers. And he was a rookie, so that'll come down a bit. But that's like higher than McCaffrey's 1.92. Awesome number. Rush yards over expected was really high, 16. That's super good. Offense is about to improve. I mean, it's like all there for Brees. He is like the archetype of the legendary running back, except he's coming off a torn ACL. So,
that's literally the only thing, right? And I'm totally with you. And it's also like you mentioned all those stats, like not landing spot. Like Aaron Rodgers running backs have always put up a shit ton of fantasy points. Sometimes it's been split up between a couple guys, and like we haven't had the truly elite seasons, but. If you combined Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams numbers, you combine Dylan and Aaron Jones numbers, like you'd be looking at some real elite running back season. So I love the situation he's in. I love the talent. For me, it's simply been the mental block of like, I like all these guys a lot. Sure, if Brees was healthy, he'd be my favorite of the group, but like that injury concern is in the back of my head. You sold me though. Like I think I should be mixing him in at the same rate as these other guys.
Like this took a turn. I didn't expect that I would be talking you into a running back, but let me just let me sell this a little more, because I talked about the pocket of the draft later, and you're saying you like to go wide receiver, running back, and then do running backs in that like late single digit, early double digit pocket. Mm-hmm. I mean, in that pocket, you've got James Connors at pick 82, Dave Montgomery pick 86. Brian Robinson is at pick 107. Brian Robinson's a starting NFL running back who
I like Robinson.
His team doesn't hate. They hate the guy. They hate Antonio Gibson. We know that. They like Brian Robinson. Like if you need, Alexander Madison is pretty interesting in that. Rashad Penny, although he's a bit more risky in terms of what his actual role would be. But I think a decent bet for early season production. Damian Harris, pretty good bet for early season production. So there's like lots of dudes like Connor going that late and Brian Robinson going that late in particular jump out to me is like, I mean, let's say you don't get it in good with Breece Hall and then third round ends up being like 2 rounds too expensive. Like, okay, well, you know what? There's not that many guys in the third round I really like anyway. And so I think you could act like maybe you could be okay if he misses like week 1 and 2, and then he comes back and he's healthy and he's amazing. And you didn't get it in good with the closing line value, but he does give you some upside with the closing line value too, because if all we hear is
Yeah, he
positive
does.
reports, yeah. And so now you're looking at a guy who's maybe you got a full round, and it's so easy to fill in the early season production at running back right now. It's so easy. So to me, like, man, that upside, it's just really hard to. Now I've heard some good pushback on just like, hey man, you're being too optimistic on a guy coming back from an ACL tear. So
The other thing, and this is getting into the weeds of his injury, it was reported that it was a meniscus injury in addition to the ACL tear. Now, I haven't been able to see anything on the degree to that meniscus injury, but that's, if you Google Breece Hall ACL meniscus, that's how it was originally reported. And those are a little more complicated. They're not as bad as the Javonte variety, the Dobbins variety, but it's been like a little murky reporting on that. So that's something that's just like give me like, I don't like, we haven't heard anything yet, but like, could it be worse than we know? And that's what's held me down. But like, yeah, if there's an archetype of a guy that's going to beat the ACL recovery in 1 year, it's certainly Breece. And he has all the upside in the world. And, you know, I posted a thread on it. Like I believe the argument that like, you know, you're taking guys with huge injury risk or suspension risk or whatever. Like, I think because of the how much having dead players hurts you, you got to be like a little bit careful about those bets when the upside isn't there. I use like Wan'Dale Robinson as an example.
I like this thread was really good. Your rate of return thread.
Yeah. Like that's what, like, that's the thing, right? Like if you're making a guy who has a high chance of, like, I put it in investing terms, like a high chance of default giving you zeros, you better be getting like a high upside to justify how bad that risk of getting zeros is. So with Breece, he's a guy who passes the sniff test for me. Like he certainly, he could be the running back one overall. Like obviously that's not the most likely outcome, but I don't think it's a crazy thing to say. Certainly we, you know, if he didn't get injured, would be saying that.
I would say, I honestly, if he was healthy, I think he'd be my running back too. I think I'd have him ahead of Bijan. He was a rookie running back on the Falcons. Okay.
Yeah, just the situation for me.
Calm down. I said Breece Hall was healthy. Okay. I know we can't say anything bad about Bijan, but like Breece Hall in his second year in an Aaron Rodgers offense, totally healthy. I honestly think he'd be my running back too. I mean, so I don't know. That's just how I have a hard time like knowing how much of a discount to put on that. Edwin Porras was saying some good things about Breece Hall, I believe after maybe one of our ADP chasing shows, but I pulled up his Twitter. He was saying, you know, the injury between him and Javonte is very different from each other. Breece wasn't complicated. Javonte's is. He said week 1 looks realistic for Breece. So, you know, I don't know. He knows more about stuff than I do, but I know nothing.
Yeah. And again, I think part of the reason, like, I just think that like the way I'm thinking about Breece with ACL, that's going to be in the back of people's heads for a while. So this is, again, I could be wrong about this. Like my thought is that like the Chubb, Pollard, Jacobs rise to the mid late second, like that's going to be like quicker. Whereas like the Breece rise to the second, if it does happen, is going to be more like later in the season when we get good training camp reports, that type of thing.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's why I've been like more, I think, like inclined to snap up those other ones just because I think it's like combos I won't get later. But yeah, no, I'm going to start mixing Breece in. And then I guess I should talk about Henry. He's the one guy I'm fading in that range, or I guess not even saying like fading. Like I think I'll click him a little bit in these type of builds, but it's just the age and the offense concerns. But again, Derrick Henry, you know, has made faders pay for 3 years in a row. So if you tell me he has 18 points per game again this year, like I'm not going to call you crazy. But he's been the guy that I'm just less excited about because of age and offensive situation compared to other guys.
Yeah, me too. But, and you'll see him there. He's a guy I wish I could take in like the 4th or something where it was all upside, but you know, it's just, I don't know. I struggle with it. He's 29 years old. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so old for a running back. But I know
it is really old.
Yeah. He's just such a unicorn though.
He is. And I think that like there is something to the fact that He wasn't a workhorse his first couple years in the league. I know they had doing weird things with like Dion Lewis splitting touches with him. Was he a workhorse at Alabama? I don't think he was. There was a bunch of dudes.
He wasn't.
Yeah, there was a bunch of dudes there. So like and again, I think this type of stuff has been like statistically on the average, like disproven that like age is more important than like number of touches. But like, man, I kind of buy that just the fact that he's so fucking big and has like never gotten hurt in his career besides the foot injury. And he doesn't have that many tread on his tires. Like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just like at the it's kind of the same bet as last year. If we know Tannehill is back, it's kind of the same bet as last year, and we're getting like a 2-round discount on it.
I think it's a different bet than last year because Tannehill's getting benched. We all know Tannehill's getting traded or Tannehill's getting benched, and now you got a Will Levis guy in the playoffs. You don't want Will Levis as running back in the playoffs.
I guess, but you
guess.
I see what you're saying. No. I the last part of your argument I agree with. The first part, is it crazy that the Titans are in the playoff race with the Texans and the Colts in their division?
I guess that's true.
Ryan Tannehill's playing well. Like, I don't know if Vrabel's the guy that's like looking towards the future and saying we got to play Levis. So I don't know. There's certainly like downside risk variables there with Henry, which is again, I'm not taking him as much as other guys, but like if he holds in like late third and I can do like wide receiver, running back starts with him, I'll probably do that a little bit.
I mean, yeah. I could see it. I could see it for sure. I think I must have taken some. I mean, the third round is not where you're used to seeing Henry go.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, like Pollard, Brees, Ramondre, Jacobs are kind of the guys. Chubb, I like
Chubb.
Yeah. I mean, he's getting up there in age a little bit, and he's always been a 2-down guy, but it's pretty easy to imagine how Kareem Hunt goes, and they're like using him a little bit more. And dude, they have to be good this year. They have to be good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Stefanski's getting fired. So, previous, like Jacob Sanderson has made an interesting point that like they probably view Chubb as like having this massive advantage in rushing situations and not really adding anything in passing down situations. Even if he's not bad, it's just like, why waste this guy? Well, one reason is just like because they might get fired if they don't win games this year. So like maybe they just lean on Chubb. So
yeah. Another thing is like the receiving projection for Chubb, like that's an upside case you can make. But like if he just does what he's done the past 2 years and is just like an insanely efficient rusher and is on an offense that's going to score a lot of touchdowns, like just how we talked about it with Taylor, like just a really good running back can pay off in half PPR, and you're not paying like a 1-2 price tag on Chubb. So I think again, like, there are some of those seasons where we made the Derrick Henry is going to catch passes this year. And that was wrong, but he still smashes ADP, right? Because like he rushes so efficiently. Like you don't need, like people are pushing back against the Chubb receiving. Like you don't need that for him to pay off his ADP. It's certainly like a nice upside case that I think is plausible now. But I'm not saying like, I'm not baking that into his like median projection that he catches 50 passes. No, I'm just saying that like, you take his splits. There was that year, I think it was when they had Carlos Hyde and he got cut and Hunt wasn't there yet.
That was his rookie year.
Yeah, well, there was some like
I think his second year maybe he had Hunt. No, what it was is that in his second year he was getting receiving work, and then Hunt got cut by the Chiefs and then landed on the Browns. Yeah, right. Isn't that what happened? And then he immediately ruined Chubb from then until now, and maybe he returns to that other guy. We should land the plane though. We should.
We should. Yeah, we should. It's super late. All right, let's do our best ADP takes and get out of here.
All right. Well, I forgot to do one, so
I can
tell me yours. Let me pull my rankings. That'd be probably a good.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to do it. I am going to take, as I scroll through the ADP on Underdog. Has anyone done Fournette yet? I don't think anyone's done Fournette yet.
No, it's a good one.
I'm going to do Fournette. It's just obvious. He's going to sign somewhere. We've talked about it. We don't need to explain the thesis of the play. He's not done. You look at his stats last year in Tampa Bay, call him washed up Lenny, say that he's trash. He was better than Rachaad White as receiving back.
I really wish you just kept going for another minute.
He's still call him garbage.
Say the Jaguars are right to cut him.
Yeah. Anyways, he's better than Rachaad White as a receiver last year. That's a fact. He's a big dude. Some NFL team is gonna view him as a guy who has a role in the league. So I'm taking Lenny, guaranteed. Put it in pen, 40 CLV once he signs with the new team.
All right. Well, I'll just ride your coattails here. I'll go Zeke. I'll go Ezekiel Elliott. Going to be rising up boards. A little, not quite as cheap to begin with, but he'll be moving up once he signs in a better landing spot than Fournette. And I'm going to get some exposure before that happens because I've been too much tilted to Fournette, as we talked about earlier.
That's fair. I'll mix in some Zeke too. Anyways, guys, this was a lot of fun. Longer show than normal, but I think we talked about a lot of good things. Again, if you're watching this show on Wednesday nights and you're not tuning into ADP Chasing, I think you're really missing out. This show, we're doing similar things probably every Friday, maybe every Monday. We definitely got to nail down our schedule to let you guys know exactly when we're going to be doing things, but we'll be around this offseason. Come check us out. We'll have a lot of ADP takes this entire summer. Pat, what's going on at Leg Up over the next couple of weeks?
I had an article on elite tight end, which I think is a massive edge in best ball tournaments, and just explaining why I think that. Kind of pointing out that, Hayden Winks has done some research on that it doesn't separate from the pack as well as running back and wide receiver, which is true. But the kind of just the interesting thing about tight end is that there's really only so many spike weeks that even occur in a given season, and the elites tend to capture a huge share of those spike weeks. Given that we're making 3 consecutive single week bets to win this tournament, it's actually a pretty high chance that someone puts together a stretch. You want to have that guy on your team. And so, kind of got into the weeds of the fan ball data that we have on elite tight end, which goes back to 2015. That's a PPR site, but that's been really strong for elite tight end for years. Elite tight end has absolutely crushed in the playoffs over the last 2 years in underdog. So it's definitely a strategy where we're trying to figure out, we're always, we don't have the right answers because we have small sample sizes, but there's a lot of really strong hints in the historical data that elite tight end could be a potentially massive edge, and prices have fallen on elite tight ends right now. So it's you don't even have to be right. You can use this strategy that has done really well for people, and you're getting it at a discount after not just Kelsey, but Kittle was on numerous first place teams last year across the industry. Kelsey was on a bunch as well. So kind of laid it out. It's a 6,000 worder, but if you're a leg up subscriber, I narrate it for you. So you can do the podcast version while you scroll. There's lots of charts. So you can scroll on your phone, look at the charts, and listen to me read it. So sign up for Legendary Upside. You can still get $30 off your first year at legendaryupside.com/early. And there's still some underdog credits right now. You can get a $50 underdog credit after you sign up. Make sure to fill out a form, which is on the website. You go to perks/Discord. There's a form in there. Fill it out, and you'll get $50 in your underdog account as well.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, that was a great article. Should definitely check that out, guys. We'll be back ship chasing next Wednesday night and ADP chasing sometime next week. Have a good night, everyone. We will see you next week.